Chapter 461. Tan Xiu's expression drastically changed. He grabbed Turtledove's collar and asked in a deep voice, "Are you sure a time bomb has been installed at the Shanghai airport? You're not lying to me, are you?" Turtledove glanced singly at the side and said, "I dare to lie to anyone but him." Tan Xiu clenched his fists and said, "Tell me the specific location of the bomb." Turtledove shook his head and said, "All the bombs were installed by Old Wolf. I'm in charge of monitoring the concert site, so I don't know the specific location of the bomb." Tan Xiu took a deep breath and quickly looked at the time. Then, he asked, "How long will it take to get to the airport from here?" "It'll take about an hour to get there by car," answered Turtledove. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed Lu Changxi's number. "Where are you, Tan Xiu?" Lu Changxi's voice was heard after the connection was connected. "Don't worry about my location, Director Lu," said Tan Xiu. "I just got the news that the extremists' target tonight is not only Zhang Xinya's concert. They have also installed time bombs at the Shanghai airport, and I'm afraid they're only 20 minutes away from exploding." At the backstage of the concert, Lu Changxi was standing in the corridor with a mobile phone in his hand. His pupils instantly shrunk when he heard Tan Xiu's report and his heart raced. He was horrified and hurriedly asked, "Is your information really accurate, Tan Xiu? Where are the specific locations of the time bombs?" "The information should be correct, but I don't know the specific locations," said Tan Xiu. "I'll immediately contact the Shanghai airport and tell them to find the bomb locations as fast as possible," said Lu Changxi in a deep voice. "Also, I'll send some people there as well." "I'm afraid it's too late to send some people there," said Tan Xiu. "However, I still need to inform the airport. Also, I've already left the New World Center to handle something in another place not far from the airport. So, tell the people at the airport to cooperate with me to find the bombs once I get there." Lu Changxi recalled Tan Xiu's special ability and was immediately pleasantly surprised. Good. I'll definitely inform them." "Tan Xiu, please." Tan Xiu hung up the phone and strode outside. He then spoke to Singli, "You must return to Jingmen Island immediately. Remember, you must leave quietly and don't take the train or plane, which can easily expose your identity." "All right." Xing Li stopped in his tracks and looked at Tan Xiu's back as he left. He quickly returned to the room and informed the people he brought to leave quickly. In the dark night, after leaving the 3-story building, Tang Xiu's figure flashed like a ghost. His speed was extremely fast. It only took him 2 minutes to reach the underground parking lot, and then he drove away at an extremely fast speed. Driving skills. Tan Xiu was now a pure driver. His eyesight and reaction speed were many times better than ordinary people. Therefore, his driving speed was simply playing with his life. On the wide road, the Land Rover Range Rover SUV was like a runaway wild horse, driving at a high speed, faintly approaching 200 km per hour. Even at several red light intersections, he relied on his agile reaction and directly ran through the red light. He knew very well that he didn't have much time. Usually, it would take more than an hour by car, but he had to arrive in 20 minutes at the slowest. Therefore, his speed must be extremely fast. He even planned to abandon the car once there was a traffic jam on the road. Although his current cultivation was very low, his speed was on par with the Land Rover's speed limit when he burst out to the limit. At the Shanghai International Airport, Chu Xianglong, the highest-ranking person in charge of the airport, had just returned from a meeting in the imperial capital. 2 of the airport's top executives also followed him out of the cabin. "Huh?" Chu Xianglong deeply frowned while coming down from the ladder. It was because several people in charge of the airport, surrounded by a group of airport security guards, were rushing over more than 100 meters away. "What's the situation?" Chu Xianglong slightly tilted his head and asked the 2 airport executives behind him. "I don't know." The 2 men shook their heads, their eyes full of confusion. Soon, the several airport executives surrounded by the group of security guards rushed in front of Chu Xianglong, gasping for breath. One of them, with beads of sweat on his forehead, hurriedly said, "Chief Chu, there's an accident." Chu Xianglong frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What happened?" "I just received a call from the head of the security department, informing us that a time bomb has been planted at the airport. We know that you happen to be coming back, so you can call this number back and you'll know the specific reason," said the person in charge. Chu Xianglong's expression greatly changed. He quickly dialed the number given by the person in charge. After the other party picked up, he said, "This is Chu Xianglong." "Who's this?" "I'm Lu Changxi," half a minute later. Chu Xianglong hung up the phone with a solemn expression and immediately shouted, "Immediately close all the passages in the airport. Suspend all flights and evacuate the tourists in the airport. Notify the police and the bomb disposal experts to immediately search for the time bomb in the airport. Also, inform everyone that if a man named Tan Xiu arrives, don't stop him and immediately let him enter the airport. Whatever his request is, you must fulfill it." "I've already arranged it, Chief Chu." "All right. Repeat it again. If a time bomb is really planted at the airport and we can't find it within the time of the explosion and successfully defuse it, it will bring us huge losses. Therefore, everyone must act now and be sure to seize the time." Understood. At this time, a passenger plane from the imperial capital to Shanghai was landing. It decelerated on the runway and quickly stopped at the designated helipad. A few minutes later, Li Laozhan, who had a big belly and a stout face, appeared at the cabin door. His brows were deeply furrowed as he walked step by step toward the ladder. Behind him, in addition to a young female secretary with a slender figure and a pretty face, there were also 4 bodyguards in black suits. "Boss, there's an alarm." A bodyguard in a black suit vigilantly observed the surroundings and reported. Li Laozhan nodded and said, "Go find out what's going on." Understood. The bodyguard respectfully replied. At this time, a voice sounded from the airport broadcast. "All passengers, please note that all routes at the airport are immediately closed due to a security risk at the airport. All passengers in the airport are requested to leave the airport, a security risk." Li Laoshan's complexion changed. He was well aware of what this broadcast meant. He had heard several times that similar situations had occurred at some domestic airports, and almost all of them were related to the explosion. It seems that something big is going to happen. Li Laozhan muttered to himself and immediately shouted, "Hurry up and leave the airport. Leave through the VIP passage." On the highway more than 10 kilometers away from the Shanghai airport, Tan Xiu's complexion turned extremely unsightly. What he was worried about had finally happened, a traffic jam on the road. Along the way, his speed was almost at the limit, and it even caused a few traffic accidents that were not serious. There were also a lot of traffic police in front and behind him. However, after he contacted Lu Changxi, those traffic police quickly disappeared around him. "I can only abandon the car." Looking at the traffic jam in front, although Tan Xiu was full of impatience, he quickly made a decision. After he got off the car, he quickly rushed toward the alley on the side of the road. Under the cover of the night, Tan Xiu was like the incarnation of the god of night in the dark, sprinting toward the airport at an extremely fast speed. At this time, even if one were to observe with the naked eye, one would not be able to see him flash past. Even if one stared at him carefully, one could only see an afterimage flashing by. "I'm about 10 kilometers away from the airport, and now 20 minutes have passed." Tan Xiu prayed, hoping that the time of the time bomb could be delayed. He firmly believed that as long as he could get to the airport, he could check the entire airport in a few minutes at most. After all, nothing could hide from him in the area covered by his divine sense. A few minutes later, when he was only about 2 kilometers away from the airport, he keenly noticed that there were cars driving out of the airport. There were even a lot of people carrying large and small bags running back from the roadside. It seems that the airport has taken precautions. Tan Xiu avoided the road and kept speeding up. When he appeared near the airport, he finally appeared in the night and quickly rushed to the entrance. The airport has been blocked. No one can enter. More than a dozen police officers looked at Tan Xiu with vigilance, and one of them shouted in a deep voice. I'm Tan Xiu. I must go in, said Tan Xiu with a frown. Tan Xiu. The dozen police officers' expressions shifted. The one who had just stopped Tan Xiu had a change of expression and quickly said, Are you Mr. Tang? We've been notified. You can go in immediately. Our airport leaders are. Tan Xiu didn't wait for him to finish and directly rushed inside. At the same time, he constantly released his spiritual sense, and everything within a radius of 200 to 300 meters was enveloped by his spiritual sense. When his figure appeared in the airport lobby, his expression slightly changed. 3. There are still 3 minutes and 15 seconds left before the explosion. Tan Xiu quickly glanced around and found that many police officers were looking for the time bombs everywhere. He immediately shouted, There's a time bomb in this trash can. Quickly send someone to take it away. There's also a time bomb in the fire hose over there. Over there, in the potted plant on the left side of the passage. What are you staring blankly for? Hurry up and take the time bomb away. There are only 3 minutes left before the explosion. Immediately. More than a dozen airport police officers rushed toward the 3 places pointed by Tan Xiu. When they carefully took out the 3 black boxes, 2 bomb experts stationed at the airport quickly ran into the airport lobby. After a quick check, they finally determined that the 3 small black boxes were all specially made time bombs. Chapter 462. With a gloomy expression, Chu Xianglong and the airport police officers searched everywhere for clues of the time bombs. He received a report from his men and learned that Mr. Tan Xiu had already found 3 time bombs in the airport lobby. Not only did he not feel happy, but his heart became heavier instead. Where's Mr. Tan Xiu? Chu Xianglong immediately asked aloud after rushing to the airport lobby. A police officer quickly replied, Chief Chu, Mr. Tang went to Terminal B. Some of our colleagues from the police department also followed him there. Chu Xianglong didn't hesitate and rushed toward Terminal B. As for the 3 time bombs that had been found, he didn't need to worry about them since they had been handed over to the bomb disposal experts. Airport Terminal B. At this time, the B-11 terminal had become empty. It was the complete opposite of the lively scene half an hour ago. Only some special police officers and airport police officers were investigating the bomb. What worried Tan Xiu was that they had found a time bomb. A total of 5 time bombs. Tan Xiu finally determined the specific location of the time bomb through his divine sense. However, there was only 1 minute and 20 seconds left before the explosion. Everyone, leave immediately. Quickly. Tan Xiu strode toward the nearest time bomb security. He shouted loudly as he rushed there and quickly took out the time bomb. Who are you? A special police officer shouted loudly. I'm Tan Xiu. Quickly carry out the order. Everyone, leave immediately, said Tan Xiu. The special police officer stared blankly for a moment. The others also quickly rushed outside after hearing it. Although they didn't know Tan Xiu's specific identity, they knew Tan Xiu's name. The order they received was that once Tan Xiu arrived, he must immediately obey their orders. The 4th one. Tan Xiu's heart fiercely twitched a few times. When he took the 4th time bomb, there were only 25 seconds left before the time bomb would explode. The distance between him and the last time bomb was 200 to 300 meters. If he sprinted to the location of the time bomb, took it, and left as fast as he could, it would be too late to throw these time bombs into an open space. So be it. Tan Xiu sighed in his heart, turned around, and sprinted outside. Soon, he sprinted inside the airport and rushed towards the runway from an open window. In the brightly lit environment, star power revolved under his feet and he almost sprinted to the center of the airport runway. He threw out the 4 time bombs in his hands and ran away when there were only a few seconds left before the explosion. Boom 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 boom, 5 time bombs exploded at the same time. In addition to the explosion in Building B, the aftermath of the explosion of the 4 time bombs on the airport runway hit Tan Xiu's back. It even pushed him, who had already sprinted nearly 100 meters away, into the air, and then he fell heavily to the ground. Phew, Tan Xiu let out a long sigh of relief. The power of the 4 time bombs exploding at the same time made him look terrible. With his current level of invulnerability, if he were to be directly blown up by the 4 time bombs, he would probably be injured, or even seriously injured. After getting up from the ground, Tan Xiu quickly returned to the building. When he saw the messy scene inside, he secretly felt lucky. He had actually rushed over from the New World Center already prepared for the worst, which was that the airport would be blown up, but not many people would be hurt. Now it seemed that, although the explosion had ended, at least there were no casualties. The airport and the runway were the only things that were lost. Tan Xiu believed that the Shanghai airport could afford such a loss. Clap, clap, clap. A series of hurried footsteps came from the corridor in the distance. When Tan Xiu looked over, he saw a middle-aged man in a suit and tie, who had the aura of a superior, running over with dozens of police officers. Are there any casualties here? Chu Xianglong saw that Tan Xiu was the only one in the messy hall and quickly asked aloud. No. Everyone has been evacuated. Tan Xiu shook his head. Chu Xianglong's tense heart finally calmed down. He knew that they were in trouble the moment the explosion sounded. However, what he was most worried about was the casualties. Now that he heard the answer, he finally nodded and asked aloud, "Who are you? You shouldn't be one of the airport's police officers or staff, right?" "I'm Tan Xiu," replied Tan Xiu in a deep voice. Chu Xianglong was startled and quickly greeted him, "Hello, Mr. Tang. I've received a call from Minister Liu. Thank you for everything you've done for the airport." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "It's every citizen's duty to maintain the country's public security and protect the country's property. You don't need to be so polite." "That's right, I still don't know who you are." Chu Xianglong stretched out his hand and said, "I'm Chu Xianglong, the general manager of the Shanghai airport and also the person with the highest authority. Mr. Tang, I already know what you've done just now. In any case, I still want to thank you. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid something big would have happened to the Shanghai airport." Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and shook his head. "I told you that you're welcome. Fortunately, those extremists only installed 8 time bombs here, else it would have been too late no matter how fast I raced against time." "Extremists?" Chu Xianglong's expression changed. "Mr. Tang, I heard an explosion coming from the airport runway just now." "You?" Tan Xiu interrupted him and said, "There are 4 time bombs over there. I found them from here and threw them there. If those 4 time bombs were to explode here, I'm afraid more than half of this building will be blown up. However, I'm afraid that the airport's runways will need to be repaired." "It's you?" Chu Xianglong was startled. An intense feeling of gratitude toward Tan Xiu rose inside him. He simply couldn't imagine how serious the consequences and losses would be if all 5 time bombs were to explode here. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "All right, I've completed my mission. But just in case, your people at the airport should search again. I still have something to do, so I won't stay here. Can I trouble you to stay and help us search again, Mr. Tang?" asked Chu Xianglong quickly. "I'm afraid that the bomb attack is only the first wave. After all, those are time bombs. Nobody knows if those extremists have installed other time bombs in other places." "Ugh," Tan Xiu stared blankly and immediately felt that Chu Xianglong's words made sense. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and said, "All right, then I'll help you search the entire airport. But your people don't need to follow me since my inspection method is different from yours." Chu Xianglong knew that Tan Xiu must have a special search method. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible for an ordinary person to find so many time bombs in such a short time since he arrived at the airport. "Please." Half an hour later. Tang Xiu searched the entire airport and finally determined that there was no other place in the airport where the time bomb was placed. In the lobby of Building A of the airport, Lu Changxi, who had just arrived, saw a gloomy Chu Xianglong. "What's the situation, Chief Chu?" Lu Changxi obviously knew Chu Xianglong before, so he asked straightforwardly. "A time bomb exploded in Building B, but it didn't cause any casualties," said Chu Xianglong with a forced smile. Mr. Tang also found 4 time bombs on the runway, but they only damaged the runway and caused no casualties. Also, the first 3 time bombs we found have been put into a sealed explosive device by the EOD experts and caused no damage. Tan Xiu actually found 4 time bombs. Lu Changxi was shocked. "He came here in such a short time, and he can even," Chu Xianglong interrupted him. With a look of deep admiration on his square face, he said, "Mr. Tang didn't find 4 time bombs, Minister Lu. There were a total of 8 time bombs, and he found 6. The 3 time bombs taken away by the EOD experts were also found by Mr. Tang. Moreover, he didn't find them in one waiting hall, but 2. Hiss. Lu Changxi knew that Tan Xiu had a special ability, but he was still shocked speechless after hearing that Tan Xiu found 7 time bombs in one breath. "Mr. Tang is back." A police officer at Chu Xianglong's side suddenly spoke. Immediately, everyone's eyes shifted to the direction where Tan Xiu came from. Lu Changxi dashed toward Tan Xiu and grabbed Tan Xiu's hands, gratefully saying, "Thank you, Tan Xiu. Thank you very much." "You're welcome, Chief Lu," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Tan Xiu, my thanks are sincere and from the bottom of my heart." Lu Changxi shook his head. "If it weren't for you tonight, I'm afraid there would have been a lot of casualties in Shanghai. All the time bombs in the concert venue of the New World Center have been removed and all the pushpins with the virus have been cleaned up by us. Even Shi Biao and another extremist have been arrested by us. If it weren't for your phone call and the explosion happened without anyone knowing, I'm afraid a lot of tourists and airport staff would have been killed. You're simply a savior." "A savior?" Upon hearing this, Tan Xiu nearly burst into laughter. However, although he was a bit mentally and physically exhausted tonight and was faintly feeling tired now, he still felt very comfortable when he recalled that he had saved thousands of people. With a smile, Tan Xiu said, "You're exaggerating, Chief Lu. I've just checked the entire airport again and there's no more hidden security risks. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave first. I still have some private matters to deal with." "I'll send someone to escort you," said Lu Changxi quickly. "Don't bother." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "But I've been rushing all the way here, so I'll have to trouble Chief Lu to deal with the traffic violations and my abandoned car." Chapter 463. After leaving Shanghai Airport, Tan Xiu didn't directly go to the concert venue at the New World Center but took a taxi back to the Blue Star Villa complex. "Boss." Ban's Ho, who was squatting at the entrance of the Blue Star Villa complex, had smoked several cigarettes. Upon seeing Tan Xiu get off a taxi, he hurriedly greeted him. Tan Xiu glanced at the commercial car a dozen meters away and nodded. "How many did you send this time?" "A total of 5, but they are a bit special," answered Ban's Ho. "What's the situation?" asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. "These 5 children are all 7 years old, 3 girls and 2 boys, said Ban's Ho. "They used to be adopted, but the old man had a cerebral vascular blockage. After he passed away, the 5 of them were driven out by the old man's children and lived on the streets. When our men found them, they were fighting with a group of children for 2 packets of instant noodles." "Instant noodles?" asked Tan Xiu with a frown. "That's right," said Ban's Ho. "They have been living on the streets for more than 4 months and haven't had enough to eat every day. Finally, they met a boy a few days ago who was bullied by his schoolmates. That boy promised to give them 2 packets of instant noodles to help him teach a lesson to his schoolmates." "And the result?" asked Tan Xiu with a strange expression. Ban's Ho forced a smile and said, "They may have won, but they were also injured." The other party was a bit more than a dozen people against the 5 of them. Are you sure they won when a dozen children fought against the 5 of them? Asked Tan Xiu. Yeah. Ban's Ho nodded. The 5 of them were fighting with a group of children when I first saw them. I asked them and learned that the 5 of them were adopted by that old man, who taught them some martial arts. I learned about the old man's identity and learned that he used to be a martial arts grandmaster. But he lived in seclusion because his legs were broken when he sparred with others in his early years. Let's go inside. Tan Xiu nodded. Let's talk inside. All right. Ban's Ho replied and followed Tan Xiu toward the commercial car. The car door opened. Tan Xiu sat in the front passenger seat, while Ban's Ho registered at the gate and drove into the villa area. Tan Xiu didn't look back, even though he knew that the 5 children were sitting in the back 2 rows. However, he didn't use his eyes to observe them. Instead, he used his divine sense to examine them. 2 boys. 3 girls. The clothes they wore were very ordinary, and their appearances were also very ordinary. All 5 of them had some injuries on their bodies, but they were all small injuries that did not hinder them at all. At this moment, they were all looking at the back of their heads with curiosity and vigilance in their eyes. Don't worry, I'm not a human trafficker. After the MPV stopped in the courtyard of the villa, Tan Xiu finally turned around and glanced at the 5 children. He said this with a faint smile and went straight out of the car. After leading them into the villa's living room, Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "You 5, take this place as your home for the time being and look around." Finished. He looked at Ban's Ho and pointed to the opposite sofa. After sitting down, he said with a smile, "You've been looking for street children recently. Tell me about it." Ban's Ho forced a smile and said, "Boss, the work you asked us to do is very meaningful, but I really don't want to talk about it. I've seen too much and know too much. Every time I look at these street children, I feel a bit sad. We're much luckier than those children, and we're also much happier. Recalling the time when I was a gangster and wasted my time, I feel that this kind of life seems to have become more valuable. Do what you like and do what you think is meaningful," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "That proves that you're very happy now. Since you like this job, then you must do it well. What I'm asking for is not quantity, but quality. Of course, you can also think of ways to take care of those unqualified street children, such as sending them to orphanages or handing them over to the local police. Let them find a way to deal with them. Now, I'm very satisfied with your ability, and I hope that you can continue to work hard." "We'll definitely do it well, boss," said Ban's Ho seriously. Tan Xiu nodded and said, "Tell me about the situation of the 5 of them." Ban's Ho said, "I've investigated their background. Little 1 and Little 2 are twin brothers. The old man found them as abandoned babies during his morning exercise at the riverside. The 3 of them were also abandoned and then sent to a local orphanage. As a result, the orphanage closed down, and the problem of how to settle the children inside couldn't be solved. Although the orphanage's director thought of many ways at that time, the 3 of them were still left unsettled. Since the old man lived not far from the orphanage, he adopted the 3 of them after hearing about this matter." "In other words, you can't find their families?" asked Tan Xiu. "I've tried many ways, but I really can't find them," said Ban's Ho with a forced smile. "Since you can't find them, then there's no need to look for them," said Tan Xiu. "The 5 of you, come here. I want to ask you, do you want to be adopted by me in the future? Of course, I'll provide you with food, clothing, housing, and transportation. I'll also let you study and practice martial arts, so that you can become capable people in the future." While Tan Xiu and Ban's Ho were talking, the 5 children didn't run around due to the luxurious environment, but stood not far away with vigilance and curiosity. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, they walked a few steps toward Tan Xiu. The tallest girl among them asked, "How are you going to arrange us?" "Very smart children. Obviously, you're much more mature than your peers," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I can tell you now, but I'm going to let you live here for the time being. After some time, some street children will be sent here, and I'll send you to Jingmen Island together. You should live there for a few years. If you perform well, I'll take you home. Home? Where is that? The girl curiously asked. That's my home, a real home, said Tan Xiu. Likewise, if you study hard and practice martial arts seriously and get my approval, I'll take you to my home and make it our home. The girl asked again, you want us to continue practicing martial arts? Do you know martial arts? I do, and I'm very powerful. Tan Xiu nodded. The girl turned her head and whispered to the other 4 children. Finally, she looked up at Tan Xiu and asked, we have one last question. Why do you want to adopt so many street children? Children like us. The smile on Tan Xiu's face turned thicker as he said, you may be young, but I'm sure you understand that there's strength in numbers. If street children are gathered together to study and practice martial arts together, then when you grow up in the future, if anyone dares to bully our family, many of us will resist together and fight against those who bully us. Are you satisfied with my explanation? Yes. The 5 children whispered a few more times. The tallest girl nodded and replied with all seriousness. Then, tell me your names, said Tan Xiu with a smile. My name is Little Z. These 2 are Little Lan and Little Qing. They are Little 1 and Little 2, said the tallest girl. You don't have surnames? Asked Tan Xiu curiously. No. Grandpa didn't tell us our surnames, said the girl honestly. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he slowly said, then your surname will be Tang from now on. As for your names, I think the 5 of you should also change your names. I'll give you new names. What are your names? Asked the girl. You'll be named according to metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, said Tan Xiu. You'll be called Tang Xiaojin. The 4 of them will be Tang Xiaomu, Tang Xiaoshui, Tang Xiaohua, and Tang Xiaotu. What do you think? The 5 children gathered together and whispered for a while before they finally decided to accept Tan Xiu's new names. Finally, a smile appeared on their faces. A few minutes later, Banzhou drove the car away while Tan Xiu took Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 to tour the villa and told them some things they needed to know. Finally, in the corridor on the 1st floor, he said, you'll live on the 1st floor from now on. Tang Xiaojin will have a room for herself, Tang Xiaomu and Tang Xiaoshui will have another, and Tang Xiaohua and Tang Xiaotu will have another. Tomorrow, I'll take you to buy some clothes and shoes, as well as some simple textbooks. I'll also hire some teachers for you to teach you how to read and write. You don't need to worry about eating in the future. I'll hire 2 nannies to take care of your daily life. Also, ring, 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 Tan Xiu's cell phone rang, interrupting his words. Tan Xiu took out his mobile and found that the caller was unexpectedly Li Laozhan. He immediately pressed the answer button and said with a smile, Hey, old brother Li, why did you call me? Brother Tang, I've come to Shanghai. Are you free now? How about we meet? Li Laozhan's hearty laughter came from the phone. Tan Xiu hesitated for a moment before he forced a smile and said, Old brother Li, it wouldn't be a problem if it were any other time. But I'm afraid I can't leave right now. How about this, why don't you come to my place? You want to go to your place? Li Laozhan was surprised and said, Won't I disturb your family if I go there so late? No, I won't. Tan Xiu said with a smile. All right, then. Tell me your address and I'll go there now, said Li Laozhan with a smile. That's right, do you want me to bring some good food and wine? I just arrived in Shanghai not long ago, and I'm already starving after settling down in the hotel. No need. Just come here directly, said Tan Xiu with a smile. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu sent his address to Li Laozhan with a short message. Then, he looked at the 5 metal, wood, water, fire, and earth elements and said, You don't need to worry about your daily life in the future. I only have one request for you. What request? Asked Tang Xiaojin curiously. Listen to me, said Tan Xiu. I tell you to go east, but you can't go west. I tell you to stand, but you can't sit. My orders are above everything else. All right. The 5 metal, wood, water, fire, and earth elements heavily nodded. They were obedient. This was their strong point. After being adopted by their grandfather, they were taught to be obedient. Chapter 464. There were 5 more children in the house, but Tan Xiu did not feel troubled. After all, he had experience in raising children, so he let the 5 of them take a bath in turn and found 5 sets of clothes that he had never worn before for them to wear. Although it looked like a robe, at least he didn't have to wear dirty clothes. Have you finished eating? Tan Xiu looked at the 5 little guys sitting in the hall and asked with a smile. No. Tang Xiaojin shook her head. Tan Xiu smiled and dialed Qi Nan's number, asking her to send some food over. Li Laozhan hurried over before the food arrived. Brother Tang, I hope I didn't disturb you by visiting so late at night. Li Laozhan, who had a big belly, wore a smile on his chubby face. Except for the beautiful female secretary who followed him into the villa hall, the other 4 bodyguards stayed in the courtyard. Tan Xiu smiled and said, It's okay. Since Brother Li has come to Shanghai, no matter how busy you are, I have to welcome you. However, I don't feel at ease leaving the 5 little fellows at home, so I can only trouble old Brother Li to come here personally. Li Laoshan's gaze fell on the 5 people of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. They are, Tan Xiu smiled and said, they are my adopted children. What are you waiting for? Call for help. Hello, uncle. Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 children shouted anxiously. Hello. Li Laozhan nodded with a smile. Finished. Only then did he look at Tan Xiu and gave him a thumbs up, praising, You're really good, Brother Tang. You're willing to adopt these children at such a young age. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and said, Little Jean, go back to your rooms first. I'll call you when the food is delivered. Brother Tang, come, let's sit over here. After some small talk. With a smile, Tang Xiu said, Old Brother Li, the reason you came to Shanghai this time is, I came to see you, said Li Laozhan. Tan Xiu said with a smile, I didn't expect my face to be so big that it's even worthy for old Brother Li to personally come to see me. Say it. Why are you looking for me? Li Laozhan grinned and said, Brother Tang, you won't have any friends if you're too smart. Come on, I do have something important to discuss with you. Tan Xiu made an inviting gesture and smiled without saying a word. The reason I came here this time is mainly to ask Brother Tang for a favor, said Li Laozhan. I have some business in the imperial capital, but I've encountered some trouble recently. The other party was the boss of another building materials business. He contacted some people and deducted a large amount of steel from me. Therefore, I want to ask Brother Tang to accompany me. Tan Xiu thought for a moment and said, You didn't get to the main point, did you? Go on. Li Laozhan raised his thumbs up again and praised, Brother Tang, you're smart. If it was just a small matter like this, I naturally wouldn't bother Brother Tang. However, the other party is a fellow who is very obsessed with antiques. He insisted on buying the Yuchang sword in my hand. You should know that I spent a lot of effort to get my hands on that Yuchang sword, so I naturally wasn't willing to sell it to him. As a result, he made a bet with me, saying that he has a better ancient sword and forced me to take that Yuchang sword to participate in an underground auction in the imperial capital. My Yuchang sword will be auctioned, and his sword will also be auctioned. We'll compete for the 2 ancient swords at the auction, and the highest bidder wins. An underground auction in the imperial capital? Asked Tan Xiu. That's right. It's an underground auction secretly run by the Situ family of the occult sect. Li Laozhan nodded and said, It's said that this underground auction has existed since the Qing dynasty. Even during the Republic of China and the war years, this underground auction has never stopped. It seems that it has been held 180 times so far. A large number of antiques and curios will be auctioned in every auction. I heard that even the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal will be auctioned this time. Brother Tang, have you ever heard of the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal? I've never heard of it. Tan Xiu shook his head. What is it? Of course, it's the seal that symbolizes power during the Qin dynasty, said Li Laozhan mysteriously. Old brother Li, I still don't get it. Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and said, what exactly do you want me to help you with? I'm afraid I'm not as rich as you are now. It's not about money, said Li Laozhan. It's about safety. It's because I once participated in an underground auction in the imperial capital 15 years ago, so I learned about the nature of this auction house. It's very dangerous. If the buyer buys an extremely precious antique, it's very likely that they'll be targeted. You're very strong, and you also have powerful experts under you. I believe your safety can be guaranteed if you come with me. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and smilingly said, what's the specific time? The 7th of October, said Li Laozhan. Tan Xiu thought for a moment before he nodded and said, I'm actually very interested in this underground auction. I'll accompany you to play when the time comes. Upon hearing it, Li Laozhan was immediately overjoyed and waved to the pretty secretary. The secretary took out a boutique box from her briefcase and handed it to Tan Xiu. This is... Tan Xiu took the boutique box and asked with a surprised expression. This is a good thing I got some time ago. Li Laozhan grinned and said, it's a naturally formed true dragon jade pendant. I'm giving it to you as a thank you gift. Thank you. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and gently opened the lid. When his eyes fell on the jade pendant inside, a dazzling red light suddenly appeared, causing his pupils to instantly contract and his body to abruptly stand up. What happened to you, Brother Tang? Li Laozhan was surprised. Didn't you see it just now? Tan Xiu turned his head to look at Li Laozhan and asked. What did I see? Li Laozhan asked doubtfully. Tan Xiu didn't answer and shifted his gaze back to the sparkling and translucent jade pendant with a red dragon-shaped pattern inside. His heart was beating a few beats faster than usual, and the look of disbelief in his eyes kept flashing. Dragon Soul. A dragon soul was unexpectedly sealed inside this jade pendant. He released his spiritual sense and fused it into the jade pendant. To his amazement, the jade pendant had its own space inside, and the dragon soul of a 9-clawed crimson dragon was constantly wandering inside. Tan Xiu wouldn't be shocked if it was just an ordinary dragon soul, but a 9-clawed crimson dragon was extremely rare even in the immortal world. The most important thing was that an adult 5-clawed golden dragon was not a match for a young 9-clawed crimson dragon. A 9-clawed crimson dragon would definitely be ranked in the top 3 in terms of preciousness and power. As for the Dragon Clan, it was an extremely powerful force in the immortal world. Even though he had become a supreme in the immortal world and had great influence, he still didn't dare to easily provoke the Dragon Clan. Who is it? Who could have such a great divine ability to capture an adult 9-clawed crimson dragon, extract its dragon soul and seal it here? Fortunately, this jade pendant didn't touch the internal space when it was cut and carved, else the internal space would have been destroyed and the dragon's soul would have dissipated. Tan Xiu secretly rejoiced inwardly. The way he looked at Li Laozhan was different from before. After a moment of silence, he slowly said, Old brother Li, give me 2 years. I'll give you a great opportunity and a great fortune 2 years later. Li Laozhan was surprised and asked, a great opportunity? A great fortune? What is it? I can't tell you now, but you'll naturally know it 2 years later, said Tan Xiu. I'll accept this jade pendant and return the favor 2 years later. Li Laozhan waved his hand and smilingly said, Brother Tang, you're too serious. Accompanying me to the imperial capital is already enough to return the favor. I was afraid that this gift was too light and you wouldn't be satisfied. This jade pendant is very important to me, said Tan Xiu. That's right. It was very important. Tan Xiu's current cultivation had reached a bottleneck, and the further he went, the more difficult it would be. However, it was different to have the dragon soul of a 9-clawed crimson dragon. Once his cultivation broke through to the last layer of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, which was the 9-controlled Dan realm, he would be able to devour the dragon's soul. At that time, he would definitely be able to directly cross the first layer and step into the second layer. Tan Xiu had thoroughly studied the heavenly art of cosmic genesis. Once he broke through to the second stage, it would be equivalent to an ordinary cultivator stepping into the immortal realm. Some cultivators were unable to break through in their entire lives, unable to seek the Tao and become immortals. Some cultivators had to go through untold hardships and spend countless years before they could ascend to become immortals. But if he devoured the dragon's soul of a 9-clawed crimson dragon, not only would he reach the immortal realm, but he could also take the opportunity to condense an immortal soul. Once the immortal soul and the dragon's soul fused, he would be able to cultivate some secret arts of the dragon clan. Dragon. His whole body was a treasure. Dragon. His physique was formidable. Tan Xiu could even be sure that after devouring the dragon soul, his body would be far stronger than those immortals. Even the demons in the demon world would be unable to be compared to him. Li Laozhan looked at Tan Xiu, who looked pensive, and curiously said, "Big bro Tang, isn't this just a jade pendant? Is it worth your exaggeration? Old brother Li, it may not be of much benefit to you, but it's very, very important to me." Tan Xiu shook his head. "Have you ever heard of such a phrase?" "No." Li Laozhan shook his head. Tan Xiu smiled and no longer explained. He pretended to put the jade pendant in his pocket and then quietly put it into his interspatial ring. Then, he smilingly said, "Forget it since you've never heard of it. I'll explain it to you later if there's a chance. The food and wine should be delivered soon, so let's have a good drink." "No problem." Li Laozhan smiled and said, "Drinking wine and eating meat with Brother Tang is a great pleasure in my life. Now, let's talk about your batch of steel." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I don't quite understand why someone detained your steel." Li Laozhan chuckled and said, "The other party is very powerful in the imperial capital. The only way to detain my batch of steel, and with a justifiable reason at that, is to ask someone from the officialdom. However, that guy said that as long as I take the Yuchang sword to the auction, he will hand it over regardless of the result. Furthermore, not only will he not obstruct me from doing business in the Magic City, but he will also help me instead. So to speak, he's not an enemy, then," Tan Xiu said. "He's not exactly an enemy. It's just that he's too good at scheming, which I don't like." Li Laozhan said, "If possible, I'd like to have less dealings with him later." Chapter 465. At the New World Center in Shanghai, Zhang Xinya was performing to her heart's content on the stage. Yet, she didn't dare to relax at all. No matter what. She had been informed by the person in charge of the security department that the hidden danger had been removed, yet she didn't get a reply from Tan Xiu. It was inevitable that she felt a bit restless. At this time, however, Lu Changxi, who had just returned from the Shanghai airport, was even more restless than her. It was because they had only found 2 extremists so far, and they had already been killed. However, they didn't find any trace of the others. "Chief Lu, the monitoring department has found a special situation." A technician from the security department hurriedly rushed to Lu Changxi and reported in a low voice. Lu Changxi's expression changed and he asked in a deep voice, "What special situation? Please come with me." Immediately after, they quickly rushed to the temporary monitoring center backstage. After entering the room, Lu Changxi's eyes swept over a row of LCD monitors. "Chief Lu, this is the surveillance footage of us checking the 4 entrances to the New World Center. Please take a look." The technician played the surveillance footage several times slower. On the screen was the scene of 2 women from the Everlasting Feast Hall carrying the extremists and quietly moving back from the 4 lines. "Who are these women?" asked Lu Changxi with a solemn expression after watching the surveillance footage. The technician shook his head and said, "I don't know. All of them are wearing caps and sunglasses. They even seem to know the location of our surveillance cameras, so their faces are always avoiding the cameras. As for the 4 people they took away, we have sent their physical characteristics to the domestic database. Our comrades in the database are searching for their information. I believe they will soon be able to find out their identities. Lu Chengxi's brows were tightly furrowed and a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. After rewinding the footage and watching the 4 videos a few times, a fax was sent over. This is... Lu Chengxi carefully watched it and suddenly felt a bit panicked. Chen Bin, once engaged in blasting work in a mining area in Xichang province. Later, he resigned and left because of a fight. He disappeared for 3.5 years. After he reappeared, those who fought with him were either in traffic accidents or burned to death. Now, Jiang Lu, from a criminal gang in the northeast. He was imprisoned for 3 years for attempted murder and was released 5 years ago. From then on, there was no news of him. If we can't find his whereabouts for the past 5 years. Jia Xiaofeng, an orthopedic surgeon from the 4th People's Hospital of Ruijiang City. He is eccentric and doesn't like to socialize with people. 4 years ago, he had a medical accident during an operation. After being detained and released, he became unemployed. Lu Chengxi read the information carefully, then turned to the technician and asked in a deep voice, "There are only 3 people's information. What about the 4th person?" The technician bitterly smiled and said, "No." After comparing the portraits, there was no information at all. It was as if they had appeared out of thin air. Lu Chengxi pondered for a moment and immediately said, "Contact the traffic department to check all the traffic surveillance videos within 5 kilometers of the New World Center. Tell them to send it to me as soon as possible." Yes. Time flew by. Zhang Xinya's concert finally ended after 3 hours. At this moment, the transportation department finally sent over dozens of surveillance videos. Bang bang, someone knocked on the door. Zhang Xinya, who didn't have time to remove her makeup and change her clothes, rushed over with 2 assistants. When she was alone in the monitoring room, she hurriedly asked, "How is it? Have you found those criminals?" "We've killed 2 of them and are now investigating the identities and whereabouts of the others," said Lu Chengxi. Also, the concert has ended, but the tens of thousands of spectators are still slowly leaving the venue. Our people are now outside to prevent them from leaving in an orderly manner. Only after the tens of thousands of spectators have completely left will the security risk be truly eliminated. "What about Tan Xiu?" asked Zhang Xinya. "Isn't he cooperating with you to find the whereabouts of those criminals?" "I don't know for the time being." Lu Chengxi shook his head. "He helped solve the situation at the Shanghai airport and then directly left. Aren't you friends with him? Why don't you call him and ask?" "Shanghai airport? What's the situation at the Shanghai airport?" asked Zhang Xinya, confused. "Could it be?" Lu Chengxi nodded and said, "That's right. Those extremists are insane. Even at the Shanghai airport. Forget it. Let's not talk about it. In short, if it weren't for Tan Xiu today, I'm afraid we would have been in big trouble. It was him who saved the lives of tens of thousands of people tonight." Tens of thousands of people. Not only was Zhang Xinya not happy after hearing it, but she even shuddered instead. She simply couldn't imagine how insane those extremists were to actually bring such great harm to society. "Give me my phone." Zhang Xinya asked her assistant for a mobile phone and contacted Tan Xiu. After learning that Tan Xiu had returned to the Blue Star Villa complex ahead of time, she immediately told Tan Xiu that she would look for him later. "Let's go together, Miss Zhang," said Lu Chengxi. "I also have something I want to talk to Tan Xiu about," said Lu Chengxi. Zhang Xinya hesitated for a moment before she nodded and said, "All right. I'll go remove my makeup first. Let's meet at the East Gate later." Outside the concert venue. A group of students from Shanghai University came out together. Each of them had an excited expression on their faces, feeling that they were really happy tonight. Zhang Xinya's concert was very successful. The entire concert was filled with cheers, and Zhang Xinya's beautiful voice brought them a musical feast. She's worthy of being my goddess. Zhang Xinya's voice is the best in the world. I must work hard and make money in the future. When I climb to the top of the world in the future, I must marry my goddess Zhang. Zhao Liang clenched his fists with a firm and yearning look on his face. Bah! More than a dozen middle fingers were pointed at him. Cough, cough, Zhao Liang coughed a few times. He awkwardly raised his hands and said with a smile, "Please don't take it seriously, everyone. I'm just kidding. Ahaha, the moon is really round today." The moon? Really round? Everyone looked up at the curtain of the night and then rolled their eyes at him. The weather today was bad with layers of dark clouds. How could there be a moon? The smile on Yukai's face faded a lot as he muttered, "Big Bro Tang has always been a man of his words. He said that he would come to see Zhang Xinya's concert today. How come I haven't seen him yet? Could it be that he was delayed by something?" Hu Qingsong stared blankly for a moment before he nodded and said, "That's right. Big Bro Tang has always been a man of his words. We reserved our seats for him from the beginning to the end, but he didn't come. I'm afraid that something really happened. How about we call him and ask?" "All right." Yukai directly grabbed his cell phone and dialed Tan Xiu's number. After inquiring about it, he then hung up the phone. He then looked at everyone and said, "Big Bro Tang really has something to do. He's in Blue Star Villa Complex now. Our dormitory is closed now. How about we go to his place for the night? We have so many people. Big Bro Tang's place may have a lot of rooms, but we still can't stay there, right?" Hu Qingsong hesitated. Yukai hesitated for a moment and said, "It should be no problem. We have 3 dormitories and 12 people in total. 2 people sharing a room should be no problem. Anyways, let's go to Big Bro Tang's place first. If we really can't stay there, we'll find a hotel nearby." "Let's go," Hu Qingsong nodded. 3 cars and 12 people quickly rushed toward Blue Star Villa Complex. At the backstage of the New World Center concert. In the monitoring room, Lu Changxi and more than a dozen members of the security department had repeatedly watched dozens of surveillance videos twice. What made them dumbfounded was that they couldn't find the 4 men who were taken away. Even the 8 mysterious women seemed to have disappeared into thin air. There was no sign of them leaving. What was most unbelievable was that the people from the security department and the police still couldn't find any trace of them even after a carpet search in the vicinity. "Chief Lu, take a look at these 2 people. Their movements are very suspicious. But the surveillance footage never captured their faces. They're the same as the 8 mysterious women, and there's no sign of them leaving," said a member of the security department while pointing at the 2 figures on the screen. Lu Changxi carefully watched the footage for more than 10 seconds. Then, he forced a smile and said, "Who are these people? They seem to be very clear about the cameras in the surroundings, and they're deliberately avoiding the surveillance footage. If my guess is correct, those 4 men who were taken away should be extremists. However, apart from the people from our security department and the police, no one else is involved in this operation." Suddenly, his words came to a halt as a young and handsome face appeared in his mind. Tan Xiu. Could it be? Lu Changxi quickly grabbed his coat and shouted in a deep voice, "Come with me to the Blue Star Villa Complex. The rest are responsible for the aftermath." Blue Star Villa Complex. Tang Xiu, Li Laozhan, as well as his female secretary, sat around the dining table and ate the delicious dishes on the table. The 5 little guys, who had never eaten such good food before, wolfed it down with grease dripping from their mouths. Ding dong, the doorbell of the villa's courtyard rang. Tan Xiu directly took out the key and pressed the button on it. Then, he stood up and asked with a confused expression, "It's so late. Who's coming?" "Brother Tang, you're a busy man," said Li Laozhan with a smile. "You don't need to worry about me. You don't have to worry about me. We'll leave once we're full." Tan Xiu faintly smiled. Just as he walked to the villa's entrance, he saw 3 cars quickly drive in. After they parked, a group of people got off. Big Bro Tang, you're really at home. Hu Qingsang's coarse voice called out loudly. Something happened at home, so I rushed back from the New World Center, said Tan Xiu with a smile. But have you finished watching the concert? Yeah, said Hu Qingsang. You've always been a man of your word, but you broke it today. We were afraid that something happened to you, so we hurried over. Huh? It smells so good. Are you having dinner? Several friends have come, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Come on in. Tang Xiu smiled and said, sorry, yesterday's update was not successful. I just found out that there are 2 updates today, 8:30 a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. Chapter 466. At this moment, Hu Qingsang's group found 4 bodyguards in black suits standing in the courtyard. They looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and then followed Tan Xiu into the villa's hall. Once, Hu Qingsang, Zhao Yang, Mu Weining, and the others had been to Tan Xiu's villa, but Zhao Yang's other 3 roommates had never been here. Although they heard that Tan Xiu lived in the Blue Star Villa complex on the way, they didn't expect it to be so luxurious. After entering the hall, they were just like Granny Lu entering the Grand View Garden, shocked and at a loss. Brother Tang, who are they? Li Laozhan came out of the dining room and immediately looked surprised upon seeing the group of people coming in. Old Brother Li, they're all my schoolmates, said Tan Xiu with a smile. This is Old Brother Li, my friend. Hello, Old Brother Li. Although this was the first time they saw Li Laozhan, they could feel that he was not an ordinary person from his imposing manner. Coupled with the 4 bodyguards in the courtyard outside, they greeted him one after another. Li Laozhan said with a smile, hello. Do you want to have a drink together? Hu Qingsang, Yu Kai, and the others looked at each other in dismay and immediately shook their heads. It's too late today. I'll drink with you another day, Old Brother Li, said Yu Kai. You guys chat, then. I just came here from another place and I'm starving, so I won't entertain you. Li Laozhan said with a smile. Everyone looked at Li Laozhan's round waist and broad shoulders, as well as his plump face. They were secretly speechless. He was already so fat, how could he be called so hungry that his chest was sticking to his back? Then what about their small bodies? Alright, take a seat. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said with a smile. After everyone took a seat in the living room, Yu Kai curiously asked, Big Bro Tang, who is this Old Brother Li? Those 4 in the courtyard should be his bodyguards, right? Also, the belle who just came out with him seems to be his secretary or assistant. Tan Xiu gave a thumbs up and said with a smile, your eyes are quite sharp. Brother Li is a northerner, a big boss in the steel business. Hu Qingsang's expression suddenly changed. He slapped his forehead and exclaimed, I remember who he is. No wonder I felt that he looked familiar. Li Laozhan was a steel tycoon in the northeast with assets of tens of billions. He was definitely a great figure. I once saw an interview with him in an economic report. Oh my god. Big Bro Tang, aren't you too amazing? You even know such an awesome person. Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, I didn't know Old Brother Li's identity when I met him. Also, when making friends, you don't have to care about the other party's identity. As long as you get along well, you can become friends. Hu Qingsang gave him a thumbs up and praised, you're truly worthy of being Big Bro Tang. What you said may seem light and breezy, but it's full of truth. I'm convinced. Big Bro Tang, I used to think that I'm awesome enough, said Yu Kai with a face full of approval. Because of my family background, I got to know a lot of people in the business world through my dad. But now, I'm nothing compared to you. From now on, you're my idol. Come, accept my knee. Fuck off, Tan Xiu cursed with a smile. Ding, dong, the courtyard's doorbell rang again. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment. A strange expression appeared on his face as he muttered, "Who is it this time? My place used to be deserted. How come it's so lively tonight?" After saying that, he pressed the remote control button on the key. As he walked out of the villa's hall, he saw Lu Changxi, along with several members of the security department, as well as Zhang Xinya and her agent, coming in from the courtyard. "Director Lu, Xinya." Tan Xiu greeted them with a smile. Upon seeing Tan Xiu, Zhang Xinya looked a bit excited. She originally wanted to speak, but she glanced at Lu Changxi and swallowed back the words that were about to come out of her mouth. With a trace of seriousness on his face, Lu Changxi said, "Tan Xiu, I'm really sorry to disturb you so late. But I have something important to discuss with you, so, it's all right," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "But there are a lot of guests at home, so I'll greet them first. Let's go to my study room to talk." "Guests?" Lu Changxi stared blankly for a moment. He immediately thought of those mysterious people who appeared near the New World Center, so he nodded without hesitation and followed Tan Xiu into the villa. Heavens! I'm not dreaming, am I? WWW Goddess. Zhang Xinya. Qingsong, quickly pinch me. Let me see if I'm dreaming or not. Zhao Liang looked at the door. When his eyes moved from Lu Changxi and the others to Zhang Xinya, he immediately jumped up and exclaimed in disbelief. Hu Qingsong ignored him because he was also dumbfounded. At this moment, there were only two people who were sober, Mu Weining and Yu Kai. Mu Weining had been very silent tonight. Now that she saw Zhang Xinya, she suddenly felt that her mood was even worse. Yu Kai, on the other hand, looked at Zhang Xinya with a strange expression before his eyes fell on Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu looked at the expressions of his classmates and secretly smiled wryly inside. However, he was too lazy to introduce them to each other, so he directly said, "You guys continue playing. I have something to do, so I won't accompany you. Xinya, the concert just ended. You must be very hungry now, right? Take them to the dining room. My friends are having dinner there, as well as some of my adopted children. You should also go inside and eat something." "I'm not hungry." Zhang Xinya shook her head and said, "I want to go to the study room with you." Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "Even if you go there, you won't be able to participate in our discussion. Don't worry. Tonight's matter has been resolved, so it's quite satisfactory. Let's go eat." Zhang Xinya hesitated for a moment before she finally nodded obediently. This scene, except for Mu Weining, everyone else was completely dumbfounded. Never in their dreams did they expect that the aloof and remote superstar, the goddess Zhang Xinya, would turn out to be like a well-behaved wife and be so obedient. What exactly was the relationship between her and Tan Xiu? Huh? Another guest came. Li Laozhan came out of the dining room. When his eyes fell on Zhang Xinya, a surprised look appeared on his face. His complexion instantly changed when he saw Lu Changxi. Immediately after, he strode toward Lu Changxi and said with an obsequious smile, "Secretary. Mr. Lu, I didn't expect to meet you here." "I didn't expect that the guest Tan Xiu mentioned would be you," said Lu Changxi with a smile. "Brotherly, I haven't seen you for several years, but you're still as elegant as ever." Li Laozhan laughed aloud and said, "It's all thanks to Brother Lu." "That's right, you and Tan Xiu." "I'm Tan Xiu's friend," said Lu Changxi with a smile. "I came to talk to him about something this time." Li Laoshan's heart skipped a beat. He instantly looked at Tan Xiu with an inquiring expression. He knew Lu Changxi's true identity. They had been in contact for a period of time a few years ago. It was a big case in the Northeast, and the people from the State Security Department stayed there for a long time. He was worried. He was worried that Lu Changxi would look for Tan Xiu and make things difficult for Tan Xiu. "Old brotherly, Secretary Lu and I are indeed friends," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Don't worry. You can continue eating first. I'll come down and accompany you to drink after we're done talking." Li Laozhan was somewhat hesitant. "Brotherly, Tan Xiu has helped me a lot this time. Lu Changxi smilingly said, part of the reason I came here this time is to thank him. He would never explain to Li Laozhan if it were in the past. But after learning that Li Laozhan turned out to be Tan Xiu's friend, he naturally didn't want to neglect him. Not to mention Tan Xiu's ability and identity, just Tan Xiu's actions tonight made him secretly grateful. Upon hearing this, Li Laozhan immediately felt relieved. He nodded and smilingly said, since you have something to talk about, then go ahead. If Brother Lu has time, let's have a drink after you're done. All right. Lu Changxi nodded and followed Tan Xiu to the second floor. In the study room, Tan Xiu beckoned Lu Changxi to take a seat. He casually took a bottle of red wine from the cabinet and poured 2 glasses. After handing one to Lu Changxi, he said, Secretary Lu, we've talked about everything. Is there something else you want to talk about with me this late? Lu Changxi took the glass of red wine and put it on the tea table in front of him. He looked deeply at Tan Xiu and asked, how much do you know about our security department, Tan Xiu? I don't know much about it. Tan Xiu shook his head. Since you don't know much about it, then I'll tell you about it, said Lu Changxi. Our security department is responsible for maintaining the internal stability of the country and severely cracking down on those who pose a threat to the country. We'll investigate any unstable factors to ensure the country's peace and stability, as well as the safety of the people. And then? Tan Xiu nodded. However, what happened tonight? Although Zhang Xinya's concert ended smoothly and the airport didn't suffer too much damage, we only killed 2 of those extremists, said Lu Changxi. If my guess is correct, the number of these extremists is far more than that. Tonight, our people from the Security Department, the Public Security Department, and the Transportation Department worked together to investigate something and discovered that a group of mysterious people appeared near the center of the New World. In the end, they did something and disappeared in an extremely secretive manner. Having said that, Lu Changxi stared at Tan Xiu's eyes without blinking and continued, I came to you for only one purpose, and that is to know the truth. You can go to the investigation agency if you want to know the truth, Secretary Lu, said Tan Xiu calmly. It shouldn't be difficult for you to find out the truth given your authority and ability. Why did you come here to find me? Tan Xiu, you're the only one who participated in tonight's operation aside from us. Lu Changxi shook his head. One extremist was captured at each of the 4 gates of the New World Center and then taken away quietly. I think you should know about it. I really don't know what you're talking about, said Tan Xiu with a frown. Lu Changxi stared at Tan Xiu and said word by word, we're all sensible people, Tan Xiu. Do you really want me to say it so clearly? Or do you want to be watched by our security department and then find those people through you? Chapter 467. Tan Xiu didn't show any fear in the face of Lu Changxi's aggressive aura. Instead, he maintained his composure and calmness as he replied indifferently, I really don't know what you're talking about, Minister Lu. But I'm sure that you're threatening me. You can consider it as me threatening you, said Lu Changxi seriously. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment before he suddenly smiled and said, I'm very timid and afraid of running into trouble. However, I also have an advantage, and that is, I'm not afraid of threats. You may be a member of the state security, but you'll have to weigh the consequences if you want to find trouble with me without any evidence. The Tang family may not be as strong as before, but a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. You should know this truth. Lu Changxi's expression changed and a bit of anger appeared in his eyes. In the past, he was the one threatening others, but now Tan Xiu was threatening him. The most important thing was, Tan Xiu's threat was very effective. Although he was a member of the state security, he knew the political affairs better than anyone else. Once the Tang family exerted their power, it would bring him a lot of trouble, and it would be a problem if he could keep his post. 2 minutes of silence passed. Finally, Lu Changxi forced a smile and shook his head. I can understand a lot of people, Tan Xiu, but I can't understand you. If I didn't know that you're only in your early 20s, I would have thought that you're an old man full of wisdom. I apologize for what I just said, but I hope you can understand my difficulties. I can't eat or sleep in peace without investigating the whereabouts of those mysterious people and the remaining extremists. Tan Xiu calmly said, what I can tell you is that those mysterious people have nothing to do with me. As for those extremists, their corpses have probably vanished into thin air. In short, the matter about those extremists ends here. What? Lu Chengxi abruptly got up with disbelief in his eyes. He was a smart man, else he wouldn't have been able to sit at his current position. From Tan Xiu's words, he already knew the fate of the remaining extremists. Tan Xiu said, Minister Lu, I've said what should be said, and I've also said what shouldn't be said. If you're still grateful to me for tonight, I hope this whole extremist thing is over. I, Tan Xiu, am an open and above-board person, and I guarantee that I will not do anything harmful to the country. So, you'd better not disturb my life in the future, and I won't give you any trouble. The corners of Lu Chengxi's mouth twitched a few times. He really wanted to pry open Tan Xiu's brain and figure out the ins and outs of everything. He wanted to figure out the origins of those mysterious people. But he could not and did not dare to. Suddenly, he thought of something and said, Tan Xiu, since you've said so much, I have nothing else to say. However, you should reconsider the matter of you joining our security department. If possible, I sincerely hope that you can join us as soon as possible and do something for the country. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, I've made it very clear before that I won't consider joining any department before I graduate from college. Lu Chengxi forced a smile and said, Tan Xiu, don't you know that the greater the ability, the greater the responsibility? Your special ability is exactly what we need the most. Minister Lu, I believe that the world is big and full of strange things. As long as the people of your security department seriously look for me, there are many strange people and strange things in the country, said Tan Xiu. So, it doesn't matter if I'm there or not. I must finish my college in peace. As for the future, we'll talk about it later. Lu Chengxi shot a deep look at Tan Xiu. He then got up from the sofa and said, since your attitude is so clear, then I won't force you to do something against your will. Our security department will continue to investigate the information about those extremists. I hope that one day, you can tell me everything you know. All right. Tan Xiu also got up and said. Shortly after, Tan Xiu sent the people of the security department away. When he returned to the living room, he learned that Li Laozhan had left with his men. He also left a message for Tan Xiu, inviting him to have lunch tomorrow. Tan Xiu, let's have a chat. Zhang Xinya spoke softly under everyone's gaze. Tan Xiu nodded. He then looked at Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 children around Zhang Xinya and said, it's very late now, so you need to rest. I'll wake you up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. All right. The 5 children were very obedient. Although they already liked the amiable Zhang Xinya in just half a meal, they still listened to Tan Xiu and returned to their respective rooms to rest. Big bro Tang, we, said Yu Kai. Tan Xiu pointed to the direction of Tang Xiaojin's room and shook his head. I can't stay there. Yu Kai forced a smile and said, forget it. We'll stay in the hotel. As a matter of fact, we came here in the evening to see if you're okay. I'll go to campus tomorrow, said Tan Xiu with an indifferent smile. Then we'll leave first. See you tomorrow. Yu Kai nodded. Suddenly, Mu Weining took a step forward. She looked at Tan Xiu and then at Zhang Xinya. A thoughtful look flashed in her eyes as she said, Tan Xiu, it's not convenient for us 4 girls to stay in a hotel. You have some rooms here, so it's okay for us to stay here, right? 2 rooms for 4 girls, it's okay, said Tan Xiu. It's not your first time staying here, so you can pick your own room. I'll go to the study room with Xinya to talk about something. A minute later, Tan Xiu and Zhang Xinya appeared in the study room. Tan Xiu sat in his previous position, but his mood was completely different. Looking at Zhang Xinya's dazed look, he took out a cigarette, lit it up and took a puff. Then, he said with a smile, "Hey, superstar, you said you wanted to talk to me. That should be an excuse, right? Looking at your dazed look, you don't have any intention to chat with me. It's obviously an excuse to be alone with me. I say, don't tell me you've fallen in love with me." Zhang Xinya came back to her senses. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, she was at a loss whether she had to cry or laugh. "You're really narcissistic, Tan Xiu. Though I do have a little bit of admiration for you, it's still far from falling in love with you. My mind was wandering just now because I was thinking about something." "What is it?" asked Tan Xiu with a smile. "Who do you think is more beautiful, me or Mu Weining?" asked Zhang Xinya with a smile. "I'll definitely say you're beautiful if you ask me now," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I'll definitely say that she's beautiful if it's Mu Weining who asked me at some other time. I'll definitely say that both of you are beautiful if both of you are here." Zhang Xinya rolled her eyes at Tan Xiu and snappily said, "You men are all the same. You say one thing but mean another. You never speak the truth." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing and said, "I just want to have a pleasant chat. Women are all narrow-minded, so I won't offend this beauty in front of me." After that, Tan Xiu suddenly froze. He subconsciously touched his mouth with a surprised look on his face. It was because he found that his EQ seemed to have become higher. Had it been in the past, he would never have had such a thought just now. Could it be, was it because he was with Yu Kai and Hu Qingsong that he was influenced by them? Zhang Xinya no longer talked about this topic. Instead, she asked, "What did you do tonight, Tan Xiu?" Minister Lu was very mysterious. I asked him some questions, but he only said a few words. Those extremists are too terrifying. Have they been punished? Yeah, they all received their due punishment, said Tan Xiu. A complicated expression appeared on Zhang Xinya's face. She hesitated for a moment and then said, "Can you promise me a favor, Tan Xiu?" "Say it." Tan Xiu shrugged his shoulders and smilingly said, "It's a society ruled by law now, after all. I don't know what's the difference between your world and mine, but I still want to advise you not to kill people at will in the future," said Zhang Xinya. "Your personal strength is indeed very strong, and it's also good to have some subordinates. But compared to the big machine that is the country, it should be much worse. I'm afraid that one day you—" "I understand what you mean," said Tan Xiu with a faint smile. "I can tell you seriously that the people I killed were all people who deserved to die. Just like this time. Many people did die in my hands, but they were all executioners whose hands were stained with blood. If it weren't for my men tonight, I'm afraid your concert would have turned into hell on earth. At least tens of thousands of people would have been killed, and a large number of tourists at the airport would have also been killed. Also, let's talk about the incident in Hong Kong. The reason why I killed those people was that they almost killed people, and many people have been harmed by them. Killing a bad person can save a lot of good people. Do you think I should kill them?" "But aren't there police?" asked Zhang Xinya. "That's right. There are police," Tan Xiu said. "But why were they still alive and well before I killed them? They have committed many evil deeds, and it shouldn't be a short time, right?" Zhang Xinya was speechless. Tan Xiu took a drag on his cigarette and said with a smile, "Xinya, I can feel your kindness. Don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. Not only will I not hurt good people, but I'll also do my best to help them. I'll kill the bad people as long as the news doesn't leak out. But once the news is leaked, I'll naturally think of other ways, such as adding fuel to the fire and letting the law punish them." Zhang Xinya heaved a sigh of relief. A smile reappeared on her beautiful face as she nodded and said, "It's good that you know what you're doing. You've helped me many times since we met. You're very important to me, and your position in my heart is no lower than Lulu's. So, take care." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile and suddenly asked, how come Ouyang Lulu is so quiet tonight? She should have run to me if it's according to her previous character, right? Chapter 468. Lulu called me before my concert. She said that she had an urgent matter to deal with, so she couldn't attend my concert tonight, said Zhang Xinya with a chuckle. But she rushed to see me after the concert. Knowing that I'm coming to your place, she hurriedly went back. She came to Shanghai inexplicably and mysteriously, preparing for something. Tan Xiu asked. Do you know what she's going to do? Zhang Xinya shook her head and said, I don't know. I just said that she'll surprise me in a few days. Forget it. She likes to play mysterious, so let her be. Tan Xiu chuckled. It's getting late, and we've talked about the topic you wanted to talk to me about. Are you going to stay here for the night? Or are you going to leave with your agent? Although the concert is over, we still need to settle the final accounts with our partners, so I won't be staying here tonight, said Zhang Xinya. Since Li Laoshan has an appointment with you tomorrow at noon, let's have dinner together tomorrow night. I found that there are a lot of dinners recently, said Tan Xiu with a smile. All right. Let's have dinner at the Everlasting Feast Hall if there are no special circumstances tomorrow night. They came to the first floor. To Tang Xiu's surprise, aside from Zhang Xinya's agent in the living room, Mu Weining had yet to rest. She was sitting on the sofa, quietly reading 2 fashion magazines. After sending Zhang Xinya out of the courtyard, he returned to the hall and looked at Mu Weining, who had already stood up and curiously asked, why aren't you resting yet? I'm not sleepy yet, said Mu Weining with a chuckle. Tan Xiu walked to the opposite side and sat down, saying with a smile, are you hungry? Do you want me to take you out to eat something? Haven't you already eaten? Asked Mu Weining, surprised. I only ate a few mouthfuls and drank 2 glasses of wine before you arrived, said Tan Xiu with a forced smile. You know what happened after that? I haven't eaten anything up until now. If that's the case, then let's go eat at the night market. Mu Weining chuckled. As far as I know, there's a street nearby with a very good barbecue. I haven't had a drink in a long time. I'd like some beer tonight. Did you watch Zhang Xinya's concert? Tan Xiu said with a smile. When we have time in the future, I'll invite Zhang Xinya to KTV to sing. At that time, I'll let her hold a solo concert for you. Mu Weining shook her head and said, on the contrary, not only am I not happy, but I'm also a bit depressed. I want to drink to drown my sorrows. Worried? Tan Xiu curiously said, people say that young people don't know the taste of sorrow. You're still young, and you're still a good baby enjoying life in the cradle on campus. Why are you so worried? Mu Weining said, let's go. When we get to the night market, we can talk while eating. 10 minutes later. Tan Xiu and Mu Weining appeared on a nearby food street. Although it was already late at night, the street was still brightly lit and very lively. Many men and women sat in the open-air barbecue stalls on both sides of the road, eating, drinking, and laughing. However, the arrival of Tan Xiu and Mu Weining still attracted a lot of people's attention. Among them, most of them had their eyes lingering on Mu Weining. Boss, 20 mutton skewers. Grill some more. Mu Weining skillfully called out to the stall owner. She then pulled Tan Xiu's wrist and walked to a table in a remote corner. You seem to be very familiar with this place. Tan Xiu asked with a strange expression. Did you come here often before? Mu Weining shook her head and said, I've been here a few times with my dorm sisters. But it's my first time coming here this late. Tan Xiu smiled and ordered some more food. He opened the 2 bottles of beer sent by the barbecue stall owner. After pouring 2 glasses, he said with a smile, now can you tell me what you're worried about? I'm worried about 2 things, said Mu Weining. Which 2? Tan Xiu curiously asked. First, I'm worried about my man. Second, I'm worried about my business, said Mu Weining. Tang Xiu looked at Mu Weining with a strange expression on his face. He was shocked by these two answers. Mu Weining, you're the first beauty in the imperial capital and also the first campus belle of Shanghai University, yet you're still worried about your man? Are you kidding me? If you want a man, you can probably line up from our university to the imperial capital with just a flick of your finger. Mu Weining shot a meaningful look at Tan Xiu. She raised the glass and gulped down the beer inside. After putting down the glass, she said, so far, there's only one man who can make me feel good about him. But this man has too many beauties around him. All of them are top-notch beauties, which makes me feel very pressured. Who is it? Tan Xiu was surprised. That's all. He suddenly came to his senses and immediately forced a smile inwardly. In order to avoid embarrassment, he hurriedly changed the topic and said with a smile, you're not in a hurry to find a man. You're still young and have a lot of time to meet a lot of outstanding men in the future. Let's talk about business. Do you have a business yourself? Mu Weining could sense Tan Xiu's thoughts and secretly sighed inwardly. Since Tan Xiu didn't want to talk about this, she was smart and no longer said anything. She then replied, yeah. I started some small businesses during high school. Although the income was good and I didn't have to worry about food and clothing, I've been on the verge of bankruptcy ever since I met you in Tianjin City. I invested in some other businesses during the summer vacation, but the beginning is always the hardest and the business is just so-so. What kind of business? Asked Tan Xiu. Clothing business, answered Mu Weining. Tan Xiu nodded and forced a smile. I don't know much about the clothing business, so I'm afraid I can't help you. However, you can tell me if you're short of funds. I don't have much money now, but it shouldn't be a problem for me to help you. Mu Weining shook her head and said, I may be facing bankruptcy, but I still have money to invest. It's just that a certain someone is giving me too much pressure. If I don't go all out to make money, the gap between me and him will only get bigger and bigger, which makes me very unwilling. Who's that certain someone? Asked Tan Xiu. You. Answered Mu Weining. Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment before he couldn't help laughing. Don't compare yourself with me. A lot of my money has problems. Of course, it's not that it's illegal. It's just that a horse won't get fat without grass at night, and a man won't get rich without a windfall. My windfall sources are a bit too much. A smile outlined on the corner of Mu Weining's mouth as she chuckled and said, can you let me hitch a ride and follow you to earn some windfalls? Actually, I really don't want to earn those windfalls. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, it's those people who are eagerly sending themselves to my door, so I have no reason to refuse. We're all honest people, so it's better for us to think about how to make money smoothly and safely in the future. Forget it if you don't want to. Mu Weining smiled. How about answering a question for me? Go ahead and ask. Tan Xiu said with a smile. Mu Weining curiously said, I know that your attainments in painting and calligraphy have reached the pinnacle, and I also know that your attainments in music have far surpassed those grandmasters. I once heard you say that you're proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and you're omnipotent in poetry and song. Are you really as good as your zither and painting skills in these fields? It's said that there's always someone better than you out there, but I'm confident that it's hard for me to meet my match, said Tan Xiu confidently. What else do you have besides these? Mu Weining's eyes lit up as she asked with a smile. I have a lot of skills, said Tan Xiu with a smile. You'll naturally know about them after getting along with me for a long time. Come on, have another drink. The kebabs should be ready soon. Let's moisten our throats first. Pfft, Mu Weining couldn't help but burst into laughter. Next. The duo ate the barbecue and chatted about various topics, drinking a glass of beer from time to time. More than an hour later, the two of them drank 6 bottles of beer and ate all the barbecue they ordered. However, there were a few small incidents during this period. They were all drunk men who came over to strike up a conversation with Mu Weining, but they were all sent away by Tan Xiu. On the way back, Tan Xiao had a whole new level of respect for Mu Weining. A girl drank 3 bottles of beer, but it was as if nothing had happened. Her beautiful face was neither red nor white, and only when she spoke from time to time would she spit out a lot of alcohol. The next day, Tan Xiao got up at 4 o'clock and woke up Tang Xiaojin, Tang Xiaomu, and the others. He let them exercise their muscles and bones in the yard and understand the martial arts they used to practice. Your foundation is pretty good. It seems that the old man who adopted you has trained you well. Today, I'm going to teach you a set of body tempering technique. It's a very simple body tempering technique, with a total of 3 moves and 27 styles. The 5 of you can't privately teach it to others. Practice it 3 times a day. Tan Xiao taught the 5 of them a very common body tempering technique in the immortal world. Because they learned very slowly, Tan Xiao practiced it for them more than a dozen times, and seriously guided them for nearly 2 hours. It was not until the sun rose in the east that they completely mastered this body tempering technique. Mu Weining, the stealing is over. If you don't want to go back to sleep, wake up the 3 of them. I'll go out to buy breakfast later, and then we'll go to school together. Tan Xiao shouted to the window of a bedroom on the 2nd floor. Inside the window on the 2nd floor, Mu Weining blushed. Because she was a light sleeper, she was woken up by the conversation of Tan Xiao and Tang Xiaojin. After putting on her clothes, she leaned against the window and saw Tan Xiao teaching Tang Xiaojin's 5 children. At first, she just watched with a very funny attitude, but after watching a lot, she couldn't help but want to learn. In fact, more than half an hour ago, she memorized the 3 moves and 27 styles that Tan Xiao taught to Tang Xiaojin and the others, and quietly demonstrated them in the window. Wait for me, I'll go wake them up, and then I'll go with you to buy breakfast. Mu Weining replied with a red face and immediately disappeared from the window. Breakfast. Tan Xiao and Mu Weining bought a lot, and it was very sumptuous. Because Tang Xiaojin and the others were growing, Tan Xiao even bought some fresh beef that had just been cooked. After eating, he told Tang Xiaojin and the others to stay at home, and told them that he would come back after a class to buy clothes, books, and daily necessities for them, and then rush to school with Mu Weining and the others. Because the Land Rover SUV was abandoned on a road not far from the airport yesterday, and he didn't want to attract attention, after leaving the villa area, he directly took a taxi to school. Chapter 469. Mu Weining was the first campus belle of Shanghai University and was the focus of everyone's eyes no matter where she went. Meanwhile, Tan Xiao had caused a sensation all over the country with his playing and singing, making him a very famous star on campus. The 2 of them walking side by side on the campus road naturally attracted the attention of countless people. However, they had long been accustomed to being the focus of attention, so they didn't care about the countless students pointing fingers at them. Weining, Li Xinjie and the rest left in a hurry. What are they going to do? Tan Xiao curiously asked while walking on the tree-lined path. Maybe they have something to do. Mu Weining slightly smiled. Her answer was a bit evasive. She had both beauty and wisdom. She was familiar with the disposition of her 3 dormitory sisters, so how could she not know that they hoped that she and Tan Xiao could be together? Hence, they excused themselves to leave, hoping that she and Tan Xiao could be alone. Alas! Mu Weining sighed inwardly. She had expressed her feelings last night. Although it was very tactful, Tan Xiao's attitude at that time made her feel very helpless. She never thought that one day she would be tempted by a boy 2 years younger than her, nor did she expect that a boy would refuse her. Ring, 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 his cell phone rang. Tan Xiao took out his mobile and looked at the caller ID. After picking it up, he smilingly said, Kang Xia, is there something you need to call me now? Boss, our magnificent Tang Corporation has encountered some troubles. Kang Xia's cold voice came from the phone. What troubles? Tan Xiao frowned and asked. Our company's business has been booming ever since the 3 products of our company hit the market, said Kang Xia. But our business model is to produce and sell our products by ourselves without any agents, so the domestic situation is still good. But in the last half-month, many business giants from all over the world, as well as hundreds of companies engaged in the wine industry, cosmetics, and healthcare products, have sent their representatives to our company, hoping to cooperate with us. You've asked me about this issue before, and my answer is very simple. Our products will not go abroad for the time being, said Tan Xiu. What troubles are you talking about? Kang Xia forced a smile and said, I've refused all of them according to your order, boss. Therefore, more than a dozen forces are relying on their wealth and strength to launch a large-scale attack on some of the raw materials our company needs. Just last night, some people secretly contacted several senior executives of our company and offered sky-high prices, hoping that they could get the formulas of God's nectar, skin care lotion, and scar removal cream. Fortunately, boss, you held a celebration banquet in Star City a few days ago and showed them your strength, so they could see your strength and got a lot of rewards. Boss, they've been waiting for a good news, so they found me in time and told them about it. A cold light burst out from Tang Xiu's eyes. Tang, it was the core secret of the magnificent Tang Corp's 3 products. Once the formula was exposed, others would be able to imitate it on a large scale, which would greatly impact the company's business. Tan's family's business. Although Tang Xiu was indifferent to money, but now that someone threatened him and wanted to cut off his source of wealth, it was something he absolutely couldn't accept. But don't act rashly and protect our core secrets and the company's top executives. I'll rush back to Star City as soon as the school is closed in 2 days. I'll deal with those people when the time comes. Boss, don't you want to solve these hidden dangers in advance? Asked Kang Xia. Boss, shouldn't we solve these hidden dangers in advance? Asked Kang Xia. How can I be sure? Asked Kang Xia with a forced smile. How can I be sure? Kang Xia forced a smile and said, the other party's background is very strong, and 2 of them can be said to be terrifying. Let alone our company's current strength, even if it's 100 times stronger, I'm afraid. Which 2 forces? Tan Xiu frowned and asked. YD Country's Mafia, Zubo Clan, and M Country's Bronze Group, said Kang Xia. Tan Xiu deeply engraved these 2 names in his heart and said, I see. Wait for me to go back. What you need to do now is to protect the company's core secrets and the safety of its top executives. As for the raw materials, buy as many as you can. Don't force them if you can't buy them. At worst, let the factory workers rest for a while. Got it, replied Tan Xiu. After hanging up the phone, Tan Xiu saw Mu Weiniang's curious expression and lightly said, something happened in the Blue City Company. Is there anything I can help you with? Mu Weiniang nodded and asked. No need. I can solve it. Tan Xiu shook his head. I know you're very powerful, but your personal ability is limited, said Mu Weiniang. If there's anything you need, just say it. I may not have much ability, but I'm the one my grandpa dotes on the most. Tan Xiu's expression suddenly moved and curiously asked, Weiniang, we've been serious for some time, but I don't know much about your family's situation. Are you from the imperial capital? Mu Weiniang looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression and said, you don't seem to know anything about my family, do you? Am I really not able to arouse your curiosity? No. Tan Xiu shook his head and said with a smile. We're friends, but it doesn't mean I need to know your family's situation. You see, now that we've come to this point, I'm asking you. The Mu family in the imperial capital. A smile appeared on the corner of Mu Weiniang's mouth as she said, my grandpa is Mu Qingfeng. Him. Tan Xiu's spirit was shaken and a surprised look was revealed in his eyes. Although the Mu family in the imperial capital was slightly inferior to the Tang family, it was definitely a very powerful family. Old Master Mu Qingfeng was a famous old chief in the past, one of the people who stood at the top of the country's power. I didn't expect you to be a lady from a respectable family. The surprised look on Tan Xiu's face only lasted for a second before it was replaced by an indifferent smile. Mu Weining said with a smile. Tang Ying and I were still young when we met and didn't know anything about family background. But after we grew up, we finally became bosom friends because of our family background in addition to being kindred spirits. Otherwise, how could Tang Ying and I become good sisters given the pride she carries in her bones? It's not that people are snobbish, but it's the secular world that affects people, Tan Xiu said with a light smile. I agree. Mu Weining's eyes lit up. Tan Xiu's words had hit the bottom of her heart. Quickly, the two separated at a crossroad. Mu Weining had to go back to her dormitory first, while Tan Xiu went directly to the teaching building. There was only one class in the morning, and it was still necessary for him to go to the classroom even though he had already finished the content of the class by himself. He didn't dare to skip classes due to the university's credit system. Inside the classroom, almost all the students in the class had already arrived. Upon seeing Tan Xiu's arrival, the originally lively classroom turned into a dead silence in just a few seconds. Many people looked at their mobile phones and then looked at Tan Xiu with all kinds of complicated expressions in their eyes. Hey, Big Bro Tang's face is bathed in the spring breeze. Is it because a good thing is coming? Hee hee. Today, the most famous person in our school is definitely you, Big Bro Tang, and the one who is the most hostile is definitely you. Didn't someone throw bricks and eggs at you when you came here just now? Yukai flicked the long hair on his forehead and asked with a smile. With a loud voice, Hu Qingsung directly shouted, Big Bro Tang's body is spotless, how could there be any rotten eggs and mud marks? Those people are just jealous and envious, and they can't eat the grapes and say that the grapes are sour. Big Bro Tang, this old Hu, will say it here today. Whoever dares to make life difficult for you is also making life difficult for me, Hu Qingsong. That's right, and me too. Xue Chao also shouted loudly. Tan Xiu was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh as he looked at the trio and asked, what the hell are you talking about? What's the most famous? What's the hostel? I didn't even drive my car today, and I've been low-key enough. Did I offend someone somewhere? Hu Qingsong raised his mobile phone and loudly said, Big Bro Tang, don't tell me you don't know. Our campus's forum has already turned upside down. You and Mu Weining came back from outside early in the morning. Even a fool can guess that you two were together last night. What can a man and a woman do together? You can imagine it with a little bit of imagination, right? In any case, the photos of you and the Belle coming back from outside the campus have already been posted on the campus's forum. I just looked at it, and there are at least nearly 100 posts about you two. The number of clicks and comments are simply skyrocketing. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and took out his mobile phone to open the campus's forum. What made him speechless was that he had been bombarded with curses and curses in just a short time. Many male students were clamoring to find him and snatch Mu Weining from his hands. They're really a bunch of idiots who have nothing better to do after eating their fill and have nothing better to do. Tan Xiu shook his head and muttered. Then, he loudly said, Students, please don't believe such groundless words. Mu Weining and I are absolutely a pure revolutionary friendship. We're martial siblings from the same school. We came back together because she stayed at my house last night. Oh, immediately. Apart from Yukai, Zhao Yang, and the others who had been to Tan Xiu's villa last night, everyone else let out a strange cry. A student with a beard shouted, Big Bro Tang, you're really awesome, aren't you? How long has it been since the start of the semester? You can even bring the Belle Mu home. Casanova, idol, Big Bro Tang, please show some kindness and teach us bachelors. Do you want to be single? Tang Xiu rolled his eyes at him and snappily said, You're talking nonsense. What Casanova? What idol? We're all classmates for life and relatives for 3 lifetimes. The boys are good friends, and the girls are good sisters. I'll treat you to lunch at the campus snack street, and Yukai will pay the bill. Later, everyone will do a good deed and help me clear my grievances. Why are you treating me and I'm buying it? Yukai angrily shouted. Can I afford to treat these dozens of people? Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, I'll take you there some other day. I'll pay. Chapter 470. The thoughts of school students were actually very simple, especially the freshmen who had just entered the university. They had not been infected by the materialistic society and were even less snobbish. Just a small favor was enough to make all of them smile with satisfaction. Yu Kai was a local tyrant. This was something that all the students in the class knew. After all, it was absolutely rare for a freshman to drive a BMW. However, it was Yu Kai who paid, but it was Tan Xiu who was a good person. Tang Xiu spent a somewhat dull and boring class in the cheerful and harmonious classroom atmosphere. Then, he went to the school library. The library card he had applied for before had been approved, so he borrowed some books from the school library and hurriedly left the campus. Back to his residence. Tan Xiu looked at the 5 children who were wearing dirty clothes again and practicing martial arts in the yard. He clapped his hands and said with a smile, "Go wash your face, I will take you to buy something." Okay. Although the 5 children had surprised expressions on their faces, they didn't cheer. They didn't have the childishness of children, but a maturity that didn't match their age. Looking at them, Tan Xiu was a little satisfied and distressed. Orphans. They had no relatives and had a rough life. Street children. They had no food to eat and were in danger. The tragic fate that befell them did not knock them down. Even though they had been adopted, they had been homeless for a few months and had gotten into a gang fight over 2 packets of instant noodles. How sad and sorrowful was that? Tang Xiu calmly looked at their backs as they ran into the room. He secretly decided that regardless of whether they could become his trusted subordinates or not, regardless of whether they could obtain immortal cultivation techniques or not, he would never let them be lonely and homeless again. However, the test was necessary, and the training would not be reduced. If they wanted to become his confidants and his right-hand men in the future, they had to bear the pain and torture that ordinary people could not bear, and they had to struggle in the dangerous situation of sweat and blood. Only those who persisted and survived were qualified to follow them back to the immortal world, to a wider world stage, to gallop and show their skills. In the nearby commercial street, Tang Xiu, along with his 5 children, strolled around the shops and bought things. Each child had 4 sets of clothes, shoes, socks, styles, and colors, all of which were chosen by the 5 of them. After learning that they had never gone to school, but they were literate, Tang Xiu also bought a lot of foreign language and mathematics textbooks. 2 hours later, it was already past 12 p.m. The Land Rover Range Rover that Tang Xiu had left on the roadside had been sent back, so the entire trunk was filled with the things he had bought. Subsequently, as agreed with Li Laozhan, Tang Xiu directly went to the Everlasting Feast Hall with his 5 children. After learning from Qi Nan that Li Laozhan was staying in the ordinary box, he directly found the box and came to Li Laozhan. "Old brother Li, I still have a lot of things to do in the afternoon, so I won't be drinking at noon," said Tang Xiu with a smile after pulling the chair and sitting across Li Laozhan. Li Laozhan nodded. He then rubbed his hands and said, "Brother Tang, can we talk about this? Can you open the back door of your magnificent Tang Corporation and let me buy a batch of God's nectar?" "Old brother Li, the production of God's nectar is very small, and the market is in short supply," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "Even if I'm the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation, I can't guarantee how much God's nectar we have for the time being." "All right. Send someone to Star City to find Kang Xia and get 10 boxes of God's nectar. Consider it my compensation for not being able to accompany old brother Li to drink today." 10 boxes. Li Laozhan was overjoyed inwardly and smilingly said, "Brother Tang, the price of God's nectar is not cheap, so I still have to pay for it. 10 boxes are enough. You don't know, but those businessmen in the north are proud to be able to drink God's nectar. If they treat their guests to a meal and bring God's nectar, the guests will definitely be satisfied. Even if it's a gift, it will give them a lot of face." After saying that, he winked at Tan Xiu and lowered his voice, Brother Tang, I'll tell you a secret. Nowadays, it's better to give God's nectar than money. It's because such a good wine is simply difficult to buy with money. It seems that God's nectar is really popular, Tan Xiu said with a smile. It's more than popular. It's simply sought after by countless people. Li Laozhan said. Unfortunately, the production of your magnificent Tang Corporation's God's nectar is too low. I've sent people to spend a lot of effort to finally get a box. Ever since I've drunk God's nectar, I don't even want to smell other wines. That's right, is your magnificent Tang Corporation short of money? If so, just tell me. Although I'm facing the auction, it's not a problem for me to take out several 100 million yuan to help your magnificent Tang Corporation add a few more God's nectar production lines. Don't worry, this old brother doesn't even want interest. You can decide the borrowing date. Old brother Li, I'm not short of money. Tan Xiu said with a smile. The magnificent Tang Corporation has only been established for a short time, and it hasn't been in the wine business for a long time. It's a business, after all. Even if it's a good wine, it must be produced slowly. Otherwise, not only will you not be able to eat it in one mouthful, you will also choke to death. I appreciate your kindness, but I don't want to borrow money. After you finish drinking the God's nectar, you can directly go to Star City to find Kang Xia. Li Laozhan nodded thoughtfully and said, You're right. Alright, let's not talk about this. Tell me. Knock, knock, a knock on the door interrupted Li Laozhan's words. The box's door was pushed open as a young and beautiful woman in a red dress and red high-heeled shoes, with long flowing hair, walked into the box with a smile on her face. The clothes she was wearing were all branded, the handbags she was wearing were all luxury goods, and the jewelry she was wearing was also worth a lot of money. Dear, I'm not late, am I? The woman swayed her slender waist and slowly came to Li Laozhan's side. With a smile on the corner of his mouth, Li Laozhan slapped the woman's buttocks and smilingly said, You're not late. The dishes haven't been served yet. Brother Tang, let me introduce you. This is Wenwen, Sun Wen. She's my woman in Shanghai. That's right, Shanghai's new home renovation company is a small company I opened here. She's responsible for helping me manage it here. Have a seat. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and made a gesture. Tan Xiu didn't feel like paying attention to Li Laozhan's private life. Since she was Li Laozhan's woman, Tan Xiu wouldn't reject her. After greeting him, he lightly smiled and said, Old brother Li is a man who knows how to enjoy life, though I didn't expect you to open a company in Shanghai. Li Laozhan could hear the hidden meaning in Tan Xiu's words. An awkward expression flashed on his face as he said with a smile, You're joking, Brother Tang. I opened a small company in Shanghai mainly because Wenwen doesn't want to stay in the northeast, so I let her live here. Wenwen, this is Tan Xiu, Brother Tang. He's my buddy. A shrewd glint flashed in Sun Wen's eyes as she observed Tan Xiu. After sitting next to Li Laozhan, she said with a smile, Hello, little brother. There are only a few people who can catch old Li's eye. May I know what little brother's occupation is? Little brother. Tan Xiu's expression turned sluggish, whereas Li Laozhan was dumbfounded. Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and then calmly said, I'm a student. A student? Sun Wen was startled and a disdainful look flashed in her eyes. She originally had some interest in Tan Xiu after hearing Li Laozhan's introduction, but Tan Xiu's answer made her lose all interest. You're a good student. You're like a flower in a greenhouse, a cradle for dreaming. My old Li is really good. He never looks at the other's status when making friends. As long as you have a good temperament, you're a good buddy. Little brother, it seems that your temperament and my old Li's really hit it off. Shut up. Li Laozhan finally reacted and angrily snapped. Tan Xiu waved his hand and smilingly said, You're right. Old brother Li and I really hit it off. Besides, we didn't care about cliché things like identity and background when we first met. Old brother Li's luck is really good to meet a woman like you who knows him very well. Sun Wen's expression was a bit unnatural. She hesitated for a moment and then said, "That's what I said. Our old Li's vision is really out of the ordinary. There are many men in the world now, but none of them can be compared with our old Li." Scram. Li Laozhan finally couldn't bear it anymore. He slapped the table and angrily shouted. Sun Wen stared blankly. She didn't understand what was wrong with Li Laozhan. She obviously praised him in a roundabout way and gave him enough face in front of others. Why did he rebuke her directly? Honey, you. Didn't you hear what I said? Li Laozhan angrily shouted. Scram. See how I'll deal with you when we get back. You're making a fool of yourself. The corner of Tan Xiu's mouth twitched a few times and he was secretly speechless. He didn't have a good impression of Sun Wen. He could feel her stupidity from her words and deeds. However, didn't she seem to be very shrewd when she first came in? Old brother Li, we're family. Forget it. Let's get together to have a meal and have a good time. Don't let a trivial matter spoil our mood. Knock, knock, the private room's door was knocked again. As the door was pushed open, Qi Nan personally came in with 2 dishes. After placing them on the table, she looked at Tan Xiu and said with a smile, "Boss, the 5 children are eating in the private room next door. I'll tell them to wait for you in my office after they finish eating." All right. Tan Xiu nodded. He suddenly recalled something and quickly said, "They should be staying in my place for some time, Qi Nan. Help me find a few nannies to take care of their daily life. Also, find a few private tutors for various subjects. Tell those tutors to make a curriculum and teach them some basic knowledge first." "Boss, about the time?" asked Qi Nan. 1 month at most, answered Tan Xiu. "I'll keep it in mind and contact them right away," said Qi Nan respectfully. "I'll take them to Blue Star Villa Complex in the evening." "All right." Tan Xiu nodded. Chapter 471. As the box's door was closed from the outside, Sun Wen looked at Tan Xiu with a dumbfounded expression. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes and heard it with her own ears, she would never have believed that the dignified manager of the Everlasting Feast Hall would be so respectful to Tang Xiu and call him boss. You are. Sun Wen's lips squirmed as she spoke with an incredulous expression. "Can you shut up?" Li Laozhan angrily retorted. "Brother Tang is the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss." Sun Wen gulped down a mouthful of saliva. She had some knowledge about the Everlasting Feast Hall, the most upscale restaurant in Shanghai. Not only was the Everlasting Feast Hall only a branch in Shanghai, but it also had branches in the imperial capital. She heard that the Everlasting Feast Hall also had branches in Jingmen Island and Hong Kong. Tan Xiu is the boss. Then. He's probably very rich. All of a sudden, she realized how stupid she was just now, and how shameful she was to say those words. She had just looked down on Tan Xiu, yet Tan Xiu turned out to be the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. It was like an invisible slap that fiercely slapped her face. It must be known. Tan Xiu looked to be in his early 20s, yet he had already become the Everlasting Feast Hall's boss. What was his family's background? It was very likely that his family's status was even more terrifying, right? She finally understood why Li Laozhan could become friends with Tan Xiu, and why he was angry with her just now. She had really shamed him. Sun Wen's expression was a bit pale. She cautiously glanced at Li Laozhan and said with an apologetic expression, "I'm sorry, Mr. Tang. I was wrong." Tan Xiu waved his hand and smilingly said, "It's nothing. Didn't I tell you that we're a family? Your old brother Li's woman, so we'll be friends in the future." The anger on Li Laozhan's face faded a lot. He looked at Tan Xiu with a wry smile and said, "Brother Tang, unusual people do unusual things. It's really rare to see a young man as old as you who still has such a broad mind. What's more incredible is that every time I'm with you, I don't even feel the age difference between us. It's as if I'm communicating with someone of the same age. Tan Xiu laughed involuntarily and said, Old brotherly, do you mean I look old? Cough, cough, Li Laozhan was choked by Tan Xiu's words. They finished their lunch quickly because they didn't drink. After the meal, Li Laozhan told Tan Xiu that they would leave Shanghai the next day and go to the imperial capital to make some preparations in advance. Tan Xiu went to Qi Nan's office and saw the 5 children sitting obediently on the sofa. Tan Xiu looked at Qi Nan and said with a smile, You've worked hard. Boss, it's my honor to serve you, said Qi Nan with a smile. Tan Xiu smiled and said, Since it's your honor, I'll give you another task. Help me send a message back to the Everlasting Feast Hall's HQ. Ask them to help me investigate the mafia in YDL, focusing on the Zhubo clan and the M country's bronze group. The more detailed the information, the better. Qi Nan's expression moved and she quickly said, Boss, I have some knowledge about these 2 forces, but not much. Tell me about it. Tan Xiu looked surprised. The mafia in YDL is the country's largest gang with more than 100,000 members, said Qi Nan. The Zhubo clan is one of the top 3 mafia clans in YDL and has a great heritage. I've killed some people before, and they were all members of the Zhubo clan. Additionally, the M country's bronze group also has many business channels, most of which are in the pharmaceutical and liquor business. As far as I know, the bronze group owns dozens of large wineries. These 2 forces have a large number of thugs and have their own security companies. They are even inextricably linked to some international mercenary organizations. Few people abroad are willing to go against them. A chilling light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he lightly said, These 2 forces are now going against the magnificent Tang Corporation. I don't mind dealing with them if they dare to touch my bottom line. Qi Nan's expression slightly changed as she said in a deep voice, Boss, had it been a few months ago, perhaps our Everlasting Feast Hall would be a bit afraid of them. But now, Tan Xiu nodded. He understood the meaning behind Qi Nan's words. Recently, hundreds of core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall had been imparted with cultivation techniques, so their strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. In the past, if they could fight against 100 people alone, they would be undefeatable. But now, every single one of them possessed terrifying strength. If they were to go all out, even these 2 factions would suffer great losses. Let's wait and see. Investigate them thoroughly first. I'll immediately send the news back to the HQ, Qi Nan nodded. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu left the Everlasting Feast Hall with Tang Xiaojin's group of 5. After returning home by car, he told the 5 of them to stay at home and then left the Blue Star Villa complex. Shanghai First Public Hospital. Tan Xiu rushed to the inpatient department, where Yuan Chuling and the others were staying. What puzzled him was that Yuan Chuling wasn't on the sickbed. Only 2 of Yuan Chuling's classmates were lying on the beds next to them. Who are you looking for? A young man curiously looked at Tan Xiu and asked. I'm Yuan Chuling's friend. Where did he go? Asked Tan Xiu. He said that staying in the ward was too boring, so he went outside to chat with the nurses, said the young man. Are you the Tan Xiu that Yuan Chuling mentioned? Eldest bro Tang. That's right. It's me. Tan Xiu laughed. The young man quickly propped up his arms and sat up. Then, he gratefully said, Eldest bro Tang, thank you for everything you've done for us. I've heard about what happened afterward. If it weren't for you, we would have been in a lot of trouble with the school. We wouldn't have been able to vent the resentment inside our hearts. You're Yuan Chuling's classmates, so we're not outsiders, said Tan Xiu with a smile. All right, have a good rest. I'm going to look for him. Got it. The 2 nodded. After leaving the ward, Tan Xiu spread his spiritual sense around. Immediately after, he saw Yuan Chuling in a doctor's office. He was holding a nurse's hand and reading her palm. This fella, Tan Xiu shook his head. After rushing to the ward, he directly pushed the door open and strode inside. Ah, the nurse, whose hand was being held by Yuan Chuling, was startled by Tan Xiu. She screamed in fright and suddenly retracted her hand as though she got an electric shock. An angry look appeared on Yuan Chuling's face as he turned to look at the door. When he saw Tan Xiu, he immediately looked angry and called out, "Eldest bro Tang, why did you come here? Also, didn't you come at the wrong time?" "Hey, fatty Yuan, don't mess with that nurse," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Let's go. The earlier you get better, the earlier you can leave the hospital." Yuan Chuling rolled his eyes. He then turned to the delicate and pretty nurse, who was obviously a bit flustered, and said, "Let's end our talk here today, beautiful sis. Palm reading can indeed see everyone's life. I'll show it to you some other day." After saying that, he controlled the wheelchair with both hands and moved toward the door. Tan Xiu could only force a wry smile inwardly. He found that as he grew older, every boy was like a pervert, with their minds full of women and women. He quickly walked a few steps forward. He reached out to push Yuan Chuling's wheelchair and said, "You can't stay still even though you're controlling the wheelchair with one hand." Yuan Chuling chuckled and said, "We're boys in puberty. Puberty is equivalent to puberty. Don't tell me you, Tan Xiu." A voice interrupted Yuan Chuling's words from the door of the ward next to them. Tan Xiu turned his head. When he saw the other party, a surprised look immediately appeared on his face as he said, "Jia Ruidao? How come it's you?" Jia Ruidao strode out of the door as he hurriedly stretched out his hand and said, "Tan Xiu, I didn't expect it to be you. I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me just now." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "My friend is a bit injured, so I came to see him." Jia Ruidao glanced at Yuan Chuling as he nodded and said, "Tan Xiu, it's been a few months since we last met in Jingmen Island, hasn't it? I really didn't expect that we would meet in Shanghai." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I'm studying at the University of Shanghai." "Can you? What are you doing in Shanghai?" Jia Ruidao said with a smile, "I've been doing some business recently and am preparing to move my company to Shanghai. Since I'm not feeling well, I came here to have a checkup." "What business?" Tan Xiu asked. "I've retired from the gambling industry, and I don't have other things to do, so I opened a video game mall." "That's right, I also have a big shop in the commercial street near your university. I've been preparing to renovate it recently." "That's right," Tan Xiu said with a smile. Jia Ruidao said, "Tan Xiu, since I can meet you in Shanghai, it means that our fate is not shallow. Do you have time tonight? I'll treat you to dinner." Tan Xiu said with a smile, "I have an appointment with someone tonight. Let's do it another day." Jia Ruidao said with a smile, "All right, I'll be staying in Shanghai for the next few months. Let's contact each other by phone later if we have time." Tan Xiu nodded with a smile as he pushed Yuan Chuling toward the ward. "Who's that, eldest brother?" Yuan Chuling curiously asked. "A friend," Tan Xiu said. Yuan Chuling said, "Boss, I just heard him say that he's quitting the gambling industry. What's going on? Is he a professional gambler?" "You guessed it right. He's indeed a professional gambler, and his level is very high," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "However, gambling is not a legitimate profession. I once helped him with a small favor, and he also suffered some losses in that incident, so he retired from the gambling industry." Yuan Chuling raised his thumbs up and praised, "Eldest brother, I found that you're really amazing. You just casually met someone, and they all accepted your help. I saw that Jia Ruidao seems to respect you very much. Don't praise me, I'll get complacent." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. Chapter 472. As the saying goes, friendship is like a clear spring that nourishes the heart on the road of growth. Although the friendship between Tan Xiu and Yuan Chuling wasn't particularly deep, but with the mentality of, if someone treats me well, I'll be very kind to them, Yuan Chuling's performance also gave Tan Xiu a place in his heart. Therefore, Tan Xiu chatted with him for more than 2 hours before they left Shanghai's first public hospital. After returning to Blue Star Villa complex, Tan Xiu didn't even have a sip of tea before he received a call from someone he had almost forgotten. Moreover, it was an international call. "Who is it?" Standing by the bedroom window, Tan Xiu calmly asked. A silvery voice came from the phone. "Boss, it's Kawako Yamamoto." Tan Xiu stared blankly for a moment and suddenly recalled the young lady of Japan's Yamamoto family, the future young master of the North Star One-Blade School, and the ninja expert whom he had cast the soul-ruling curse on. "What's the matter?" "It's an important matter, boss," said Kawako respectfully. "I just received an order from my family's patriarch, my father. He wants me to lead a team to China to steal the product information of a company called the Magnificent Tang Corporation in Star City. I know you're in Star City, so I'm calling you." Tan Xiu's complexion changed and a cold light flashed in his eyes as he slowly said, "I'm the Magnificent Tang Corporation's boss. I personally developed the immortal wine, skin care lotion, and scar removal cream. Do you think I'll let your Yamamoto family get them?" "I'm really sorry, boss," said Kawako hurriedly. "I didn't know that you're the Magnificent Tang Corporation's boss, nor did I know that you developed those 3 products. But my father's order." Tan Xiu's mind raced and he pondered for a while before he slowly said, "You can bring your men here and wait for my news after you've settled down in Star City. I'm in Shanghai now and I'll return to Star City in 2 days. We'll have a long-term plan at that time. Also, how is your development over there after returning to China?" Kawako complied and said, "Boss, the soul-ruling spell you taught me is really miraculous. I've already secretly controlled 1/3 of the high-ranking members of the family. They may keep a distance from me on the surface, but they're completely obedient to me in secret. In addition, several elders of the North Star One-Blade School were also under my control with the mind-controlling curse. A group of elite ninjas also obeyed my orders. 3 years at most, and I will be able to completely control the Yamamoto clan and the North Star One-Blade School." Tan Xiu said with satisfaction, "I see. Later, I will send you a list of cultivation resources. There are some medicinal herbs and ores on it. You can use your power in the island to find them. If you bring a lot of them over, I will reward you with some pills that can help you cultivate faster." "Elixir? What's that?" asked Kawako. "You don't need to know. You just need to find the medicinal herbs and ores on the list I gave you," said Tan Xiu lightly. "If I'm satisfied, I'll give you some pills that can speed up your cultivation. It's even possible to speed it up several times." "Several times?" Kawako got excited and hurriedly said, "I'll try my best to postpone my trip to China, boss. I'll try my best to find the medicinal herbs and ores you need." "All right." Tan Xiu then hung up the phone. In order to return to the immortal world and restore his peak state, Tan Xiu needed a lot of cultivation resources. Only with those cultivation resources could he quickly improve his strength and achieve his ultimate goal of revenge. Japan was a very special country. Although Tan Xiu didn't know the situation there, he believed that it should have some medicinal herbs and ores that he could use. It could be said that Kawako was his lackey that he had trained and would become his minion in the future to do things that were beneficial to him. At the imperial capital. At the Tang family's residence. Lu Chengxi was alone as he stood outside the courtyard with some fruits in his hand, quietly waiting. A soldier stood straight by the door and coldly stared at him with a spear in his hand. "Department Head Lu, Senior Tang is in the backyard garden. Someone will take you to see him after you go in," said another soldier with a spear in a deep voice as he came out of the courtyard. Lu Chengxi nodded in response and strode through the courtyard's first gate. A pond appeared in front of him. On the left side of the pond was a small round door with bright purple and red flowers in sight. Dozens of bird cages were hung on the lush green branches as the beautiful singing of birds could be heard. At the center of the garden. In the antique pavilion, the 2 brothers, Tang Guoshou and Tang Guosheng, were playing chess. The black and white go pieces almost covered the entire chessboard. Beside them, The bronze incense burner was emitting green smoke in spirals, filling the air with a faint fragrance that enveloped the small world. After Lu Changxi arrived, he quietly stood outside the pavilion and didn't disturb the two men playing chess. He just handed the fruits in his hand to the steward who followed him. "Take off your boots." A bright smile appeared on Tang Guishou's wrinkled face as all the wrinkles on his face smoothed out. Tang Guisheng shook his head, but his expression was extraordinarily calm. His eyes shifted from the chessboard to Lu Changxi's expression as he beckoned him. "Senior Tang." Lu Changxi respectfully called out to the two. "Little Lu, what made you think of visiting this old man today?" asked Tang Guisheng with a smile. "I should have come earlier, actually," said Lu Changxi with a smile. "It's just that I've been busy with official business, so I've been running around outside. I just found some time to come here from Magic City. How's your health?" Magic City? Tang Guisheng already knew what happened in Magic City. His eyes instantly narrowed. Although Lu Changxi didn't say anything, he could faintly guess that Lu Changxi's arrival was probably related to his precious grandson. "You brat, you're as scheming as the stars in the sky. Tell me, what's your purpose in coming here?" Having his thoughts seen through, Lu Changxi awkwardly smiled and then seriously said, "Senior Tang, the main reason I came here this time is for Tan Xiu. You're his grandfather, so I'm sure he'll listen to you." "Sure enough." Tang Guisheng sighed inwardly. The smile on his face also disappeared as he said, "Go on." "Senior Tang, I believe you've already received all the news in Magic City," said Lu Changxi. "It's all thanks to Tan Xiu this time that some tragedies were avoided. It could be said that if it weren't for Tan Xiu, Zhang Xinya's concert would have turned into a tragedy. The loss at the airport was also reduced to a minimum. I've already asked the higher-ups for Tan Xiu's merit, and he'll be rewarded in a few days. The reason I came to see you this time is because I want him to join our security department. Having him join us will definitely be like adding wings to a tiger. It'll play a greater role in the peace and stability of our country. I've personally invited him several times, but he refused all of them on the grounds of his studies. So can you persuade him to join our security department? You can rest assured. Although I can't give him too much authority, I can guarantee that I'll give him the best treatment. I can even guarantee that as long as he does a good job, I'll give him my position in the future." Tang Guisheng squinted his eyes. After listening to Lu Changxi's words, a smile appeared on his face again, and it was even more pronounced than before. However, recalling his grandson's character, he couldn't find any other words to describe it except for a wry smile. "Little Lu, Xiu may be my grandson, but he's been wandering outside all these years. I just found him a few months ago. Adults have their own thoughts. I may be his grandfather, but it's not appropriate for me to interfere with his decision. I already know about this matter, and I'll talk to him about it. As for the outcome, I can't guarantee you." Lu Changxi stared blankly for a moment and then asked in surprise, "Senior Tang, you can't make a decision for him?" "This. I can naturally help him if he's just an ordinary child," said Tang Guisheng with a smile. "But he can make you beg me. Do you think he's just an ordinary child?" "You're right, Senior," said Lu Changxi with a wry smile. "Will you stay for dinner tonight?" asked Tang Guisheng. "No, thanks. I have to rush back to the unit later," said Lu Changxi quickly. "There are still some unsolved mysteries, and Tan Xiu doesn't want to tell me the truth, so I can only investigate it myself." "What mystery?" asked Tang Guisheng with his brows raised. Lu Changxi hesitated for a moment and then said with all seriousness, "This is actually another reason why I came here. A mysterious force has appeared at the crime scene this time. According to our surveillance footage, some suspected members of the extremists were taken away by some mysterious people. In addition, we checked all the traffic surveillance cameras within a 5-kilometer radius of the crime scene, as well as the surveillance cameras of the nearby commercial buildings, residences, and shops. There are dozens of suspicious people. What gives us a headache is that these mysterious people are very good at anti-detection. Among the hundreds of surveillance videos, none of the surveillance videos have captured the faces of those people. What? Tang Guosheng and Tang Guoshou were horrified. They used to be in control of great power, so they naturally knew some investigative methods. They couldn't believe it. Hundreds of surveillance areas and dozens of mysterious people, yet none of them had captured their faces. These people were too powerful, right? Tang Guosheng took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "You mean, Xiu knows the identity of these people?" "I suspect that Tan Xiu knows their ins and outs." Lu Changxi nodded. "It's very likely that he knows them." Lu Changxi nodded and said, "Because no one else knows about the appearance of these extremists except the State Security Department and the police." Countless thoughts churned inside Tang Guosheng's mind. He recalled the game between Tan Xiu and the Yao family in the south, as well as the mysterious powerhouses Tan Xiu summoned. Suddenly, he was somewhat enlightened. However, he naturally wouldn't speak out his thoughts in front of Lu Changxi, who had a special identity. There will be 3 updates today. Brothers and sisters, let's buy tickets. Chapter 473. Holy shit. I just finished writing this chapter, only to find that the chapter 1 updated this morning has been harmonized again. I didn't write any sensitive content. Quiet Knight has spent most of his time and energy on revising the content of the chapter. How can he break out? As the saying goes, an old man who doesn't die is a thief. Tang Guosheng was one of the oldest people in the country, and he was shrewd to the bone. He gently placed his fingers on the chessboard and tapped rhythmically while indifferently saying, "Minister Lu, your Ministry of State Security may have great power, but a mere suspicion can't prove anything, can it? I know all about Xiu's situation. I've sent people to investigate his life experience after I found him, but they didn't find any information about the mysterious man." Lu Changxi stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "I know I shouldn't suspect Tan Xiu, Senior Tang, but..." Tang Guosheng waved his hand to interrupt Lu Changxi and lightly said, "Go ahead and investigate him if you don't believe me, Minister Lu. But no one can provoke my grandson. My family may not be as strong as before, but a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. I'm sure he'll know that my family's teeth are still very sharp if we keep an eye on him." Lu Changxi was also a smart man since he could reach his current status. He instantly understood Tang Guosheng's meaning and forced a smile. "Since Senior Tang has spoken, then this matter is over. Senior Tang, you must persuade Tan Xiu. If he's willing to join our Ministry of State Security, I'll welcome him with open arms." "All right." Tang Guosheng nodded indifferently. A few minutes later. Following Lu Changxi's departure, Tang Guoshou grabbed a black chess piece with a thoughtful look in his eyes and slowly said, "Dozens of mysterious experts who are proficient in counter-investigation and seem to have secretly eliminated some extremists without alerting the Ministry of State Security and the police. Very good. It seems that our grandson really has some trump cards that we don't know." Tang Guosheng picked up a white chess piece and lightly said, "I always knew that Xiu had some trump cards, but I didn't expect this one to be stronger than I imagined. Rest assured, I won't worry about the future of our Tang family even if I have to see Buddha now. However, since I'm still alive, I can't let anyone threaten him. Third brother, your body is still strong. Go and let that Lu Changxi move his butt. He's no longer suitable to stay in the security department." Tang Guoshou frowned and said, "Big brother, I'm afraid our Tang family will have to pay some price if we make Lu Changxi change his position." Tang Guosheng sneered and said, "Even if we have to pay a greater price, we still have to do it. Think of a way to push him and let him go to some good units. I believe that with his intelligence, he won't easily pursue what happened in Shanghai." Tang Guoshou nodded and said, "I hope Xiu's trump card is beyond our imagination, else we'll lose this move." Tang Guosheng confidently said, "It won't be a loss. Just those dozens of experts were enough to make me overjoyed. It's not like you don't know the abilities of those people in the security department. They are all elites who have gone through special training. Even they lost their temper, hee hee." "That's true. Shanghai, Blue Star Villa Complex. Tan Xiu's concept of the strong being respected in any environment had already been integrated into his bones. Therefore, he cultivated even more diligently. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, he silently circulated the surging star force in his body, resonating with the stardust in the universe and continuously absorbing the star force. He had already worn the jade pendant given to him by Li Laozhan on his neck. The dragon soul of the nine-clawed crimson dragon exuded a weak dragon soul force. Even though it was very weak, it was still very beneficial to Tan Xiu. Even when he breathed, he could absorb a trace of the dragon's soul force into his body. A dragon could move unhindered in the myriad realms with its powerful body, while a phoenix could command the world with its powerful spirit. The heavenly art of cosmic genesis that Tan Xiu cultivated was a supreme cultivation technique for forging a demonic body, which was compatible with a dragon's body. Therefore, after the dragon's soul force was absorbed into his body, it nourished his body all the time, washing away the impurities in his body and tempering the strength of his physique. Coupled with the magical effect of the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, the strength of his physique improved at an extremely fast speed. Huh! The black hole in my dantian is shrinking. And more star force is gushing out of the black hole. What is it like inside the black hole? I can't explore it with my divine senses, but I can feel that it's not ordinary. To what extent will I be able to know the answer I want to know? Tan Xiu slowly opened his eyes, allowing the star force in his meridians to run freely, and silently pondered some things that puzzled him. Buzz, all of a sudden, an invisible force emanated from his dantian. To be precise, it came from the black hole. The huge suction seemed to be able to devour everything. The seed of the heavenly path universe tree, which was quietly suspended in his dantian, was easily pulled and swallowed by the devouring force. Damn it! Tan Xiu's face suddenly changed. The seed of the heavenly path universe tree was too important to him. It meant that his chances of stepping into the divine realm in the future would increase by thousands of times. The next moment, Tan Xiu's angry expression froze. As the seed of the heavenly path universe tree was swallowed into the black hole, a surging life force gushed out of the black hole. The life force was like a clear spring, nourishing Tan Xiu's physique, nourishing his internal organs, and even making the surging star force in his meridians more lively. However, that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that the surging life force had mostly integrated into his soul halo. The soul halo that Tan Xiu could only see with his perception when he broke through to the supremacy stage in the immortal realm was now clearly visible to him. The soul halo that was the size of a needle tip could only be clearly seen when it was magnified countless times, and the naked eye could only see a tiny spot of light. However, after the surging life force integrated into it, the halo rapidly expanded. In just a few breaths, the soul halo had increased by about 10 times. Tan Xiu blinked his eyes. An indescribable feeling had been grasped by him. That was the enhancement of life force, that was the strength of the soul, that was the extension of life. He could feel that the life force had increased his life by at least 1,000 years. Logically speaking, with his current level of cultivation, living more than 200 years was already the limit. But the surging life force had increased his life by 1,000 years. If the immortals in the immortal realm knew about this, their eyes would turn red with jealousy and they would want to exchange for it at all costs. Death was like a lamp going out, and everything would be in vain. Live. That was the most meaningful thing. Tan Xiu floated up and quietly came to the window. Looking at the pitch-black scenery outside, he was half happy and half worried. He didn't know if the seed of the heavenly path universe tree still existed, which added to the mystery in his heart. All of a sudden, he seemed to realize something and rushed out of the room. When he came to the living room on the first floor, he found a strong aroma of food coming from the kitchen. 5 thin and small figures were busy in the kitchen. Tang Xiaomu, who had turned around to take something, still had some white flour on his face. "Are you cooking?" Surprised, Tan Xiu came to the kitchen door and asked while looking at them. Tang Xiaomu looked back and said, boss, we saw some food in the fridge, flour, and other vegetables in the cupboard, so we just cooked some. Are you hungry? If you are, wash your hands and we'll be able to eat soon. Tan Xiu replied with a blank expression. After washing his hands in the bathroom, he returned to the dining room and saw that the children had already put several dishes on the table. Although these dishes were ordinary, the aroma was very strong. Boss, our grandfather who adopted us told us that food is the most important thing for the people when we were 5 years old and taught us how to cook, said Tang Xiaomu in a low voice. Later, after we learned how to cook, we cooked every day. You taste it. Tan Xiu suddenly understood. He picked up the chopsticks and tasted the dishes, nodded and praised, it's very good. You guys are great. A smile appeared on Tang Xiaomu's small face as he said, Boss, eat more if you like it. We'll cook for you every day later. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, although the dishes you cook are very delicious, your most important task is to study and cultivate. Therefore, let the nannies handle the cooking in the future. Several nannies should come here soon to take care of your daily life. Don't waste money, boss, said Tang Xiaomu in a low voice. We can take good care of ourselves. Tan Xiu said, I know your abilities, and I'm very satisfied with you. But the task of studying and cultivating in the future is very important, so you can't waste your mind on other things. When your studies and cultivation reach a satisfactory level, you can choose what you like. All right. Tang Xiaomu gently nodded. Honk, honk, outside the villa's courtyard, a car horn sounded. Tan Xiu's expression moved. He released his spiritual sense and instantly saw a car outside the courtyard. Ouyang Lulu was pressing the horn with a faint smile on her face. Taking out the key, Tan Xiu pressed the button. 2 minutes later, Ouyang Lulu walked into the villa's hall while carrying her handbag. After sniffing it, she immediately rushed to the dining room. Oh, it's better to come early than to come at the right time. Give me a pair of chopsticks, I'm going to wash my hands. Having said that, she threw her handbag on a chair and strode toward the bathroom on the first floor. Tan Xiu rolled his eyes and muttered inwardly, this girl really doesn't regard herself as an outsider. Quickly. Ouyang Lulu returned to the dining room and smilingly looked at the dishes on the table. She nodded and said, I didn't expect you to hire a nanny, Tan Xiu. These dishes may look ordinary, but they're really fragrant. Let me taste them first. Tan Xiu patted the back of Ouyang Lulu's hand and snappily said, it's so late and you haven't eaten yet? If you want to eat, just wait for a while. Those children haven't finished cooking yet. Children? What children? Ouyang Lulu stared blankly and looked at Tan Xiu with a surprised expression. Chapter 474. Boss, big sister Xiaojin has made another. Tang Xiaomu ran into the dining room with a plate of shredded pork with green peppers. Before he finished speaking, his eyes fell on Ouyang Lulu. Tan Xiu took the dish and said with a smile, Xiaomu, this is your Auntie Lulu. Hello, Auntie Lulu. Tang Xiaomu called out obediently. Auntie? Ouyang Lulu's mouth twitched a few times. She squeezed out a smile and nodded to Tang Xiaomu. Then, she looked at Tan Xiu with an inquiring expression. Tan Xiu said, she's the 5 orphans I adopted. She's Tang Xiaomu, and the other 4 are Tang Xiaojin, Tang Xiaoshui, Tang Xiaohua, and Tang Xiaotu. These dishes are cooked by them. Ouyang Lulu got up and strode toward the kitchen. When she saw the 4 little figures busy in the kitchen, she immediately turned around and returned to the dining room. She glared at Tan Xiu and shouted, Hey, Tan Xiu, do you still have any humanity left in you? These 5 are still children, yet you want them to cook. You don't want to eat? Tan Xiu asked. If not, go to the living room and wait for me. You, Ouyang Lulu rolled her eyes at Tan Xiu. She then pulled Tang Xiaomu's hand and whispered, Xiaomu, let's go to the kitchen. Auntie will help you cook. About 10 minutes later. Several dishes were brought to the dining room. Even a bowl of steaming white rice was placed in front of Tan Xiu. Tan Xiu was not that hungry, but the children's cooking aroused his appetite. Soon, after eating and drinking to his heart's content, Tan Xiu looked at the 5 children as well as Ouyang Lulu and said, "You 5 take a break and then go read some books. Lulu, let's go to the living room and have a chat." Ouyang Lulu followed Tan Xiu to the living room and asked, "Why did you call me out?" "I haven't washed the dishes yet." Tan Xiu said, "I'll shower later." "You came here so late at night. You must have something to do, right?" Ouyang Lulu seemed to recall something and quickly ran back to the restaurant. After coming out with her handbag, she took out a red invitation and handed it to Tan Xiu with both hands, saying, "Boss Tang, my restaurant will open tomorrow. You're welcome to attend." "Restaurant opening? You've been so secretive all this time. Did you come to Shanghai to open a restaurant?" Tan Xiu was surprised. Ouyang Lulu proudly said, "That's for sure. All of my belongings had been thrown in, and now I was as poor as a beggar. However, starting tomorrow, the restaurant will have money coming in, and my financial crisis will be over. How was it? Do me the honor. There's an empty seat for you at the ribbon-cutting ceremony." Tan Xiu took the invitation, shook his head and said with a smile, "Sure, I'll come to support you, but I'll pass on the ribbon-cutting ceremony. I'm not a big shot, nor do I have any fame. Well, in short, it's not my style to cut the ribbon-cutting ceremony for you." Ouyang Lulu walked to Tan Xiu's side and sat next to him. She pulled Tan Xiu's arm with both hands and spoke with a bit of a coquettish tone, "I know your character, but I won't do it again. You're the best among all the people I know. This restaurant is my private property, and it doesn't belong to the Ouyang family. I really hope you can be one of the people cutting the ribbon-cutting ceremony." Tan Xiu was a bit helpless inside. But looking at Ouyang Lulu's appearance, he could only force a smile and said, "Forget it. You said it yourself, so I won't do it again. Anyways, you won't invite the media for the opening of your restaurant, will you?" "No, no. There's absolutely no shadow of the media." Ouyang Lulu quickly shook her head. "I invited some officials from the city government, as well as Big Star Zhang. As for the others, aside from my Paradise Manners staff, there are also some guests who have been attracted by the recent publicity. That's right, there should be some business people in Shanghai who have business dealings with our Ouyang family. It's quite a big one." Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I've invested all my assets, so how can it not be big?" Ouyang Lulu said. "But I firmly believe that the Paradise Manners business will be very hot. That's right, I'll tell you a secret. I stole the dishes from the Everlasting Feast Hall and the Seaside Straight Manor. I even signed a meat cooperation contract with your uncle, Tang Dong. Some of the specialties are made from the fierce beast meat of the Seaside Straight Manor. They're delicious, and I guarantee that the guests will have their mouths full of grease. It seems like you've really done a lot of things." Tan Xiu couldn't help laughing. "That's for sure." Ouyang Lulu proudly smiled. Half an hour later, Ouyang Lulu left in a hurry because she was facing the problem of the opening ceremony. But just as she left, Mu Weining came with a lot of big and small bags. "What are these things?" Tan Xiu looked at the dozens of big and small bags as well as Mu Weining, who was panting with sweat on her forehead. "I bought some snacks for Xiaojin and the other 4, as well as some clothes," Mu Weining said with a smile. "That suitcase over there and that travel bag are my luggage. Our dormitory has been having power outages recently and it's very noisy, so I'll be staying here tonight and tomorrow night. I have to rush back to the imperial capital early in the morning the day after tomorrow. This is not a hotel." Tan Xiu muttered inwardly. He waved his hand and said, "You pick the room yourself. I still have classes tomorrow morning, so I'm going to rest first." "All right." Mu Weining picked up the big and small bags and headed to the room where Tang Xiaojin and the other 4 children were staying. The next day, Tan Xiao had classes at school in the morning and arrived at the address marked on the invitation at noon. To his surprise, the Paradise Manor occupied a large area and had a very good geographical environment. It was only 20 kilometers away from the University of Magic and Magic. The place was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, brimming with a festive atmosphere. After Tan Xiao arrived, he found a large parking lot full of cars, many of which were luxury cars. He took the sightseeing car specially used to greet the guests and came to the front of the triangle-shaped buildings of the manor. He secretly sighed at the wisdom of the designer. There were 3 buildings, each of which was 3 stories high. There was an antique pagoda-like pavilion, a European-style Western-style building, and a modern pavilion. As for the pagoda-like pavilion, it stood in the middle of the building. Most of the guests were gathered at the fountain square outside the pavilion. Tan Xiao glanced around and found no acquaintances, so he walked inside. When he saw Ouyang Lulu greeting several guests in the pavilion's hall, he just waved his arm at her and then went to the lounge area in the corner. After sitting on the sofa, he took out his mobile and played with it. This man is really... Ouyang Lulu was secretly annoyed after seeing Tan Xiao's performance. After greeting the guests, she strode toward Tan Xiao and said with dissatisfaction, "Why are you so free? Come with me to greet the guests." Tan Xiao was confused and said, "I'm not the boss, nor am I a manager. Why should I greet the guests? Besides, I don't know who those guests are. This Paradise Manor will be my dowry in the future." Ouyang Lulu angrily said. "What does your dowry have to do with me?" Tan Xiao snappily said. Ouyang Lulu touched her forehead and then sat next to Tan Xiao. She pulled his arm and said, "This Ouyang Lulu's vision is too high. You're the only one who can enter my eyes. You're my future man, and this Paradise Manor is also your property. Therefore, you must come with me to greet the guests. I'll introduce each guest to you." Tan Xiao's expression sank. He pushed away Ouyang Lulu's hand and said, "Lulu, you're my friend. I hope you don't make this kind of joke. I told you that I won't have a girlfriend in the next few years. Marrying a wife and having children is something far away from me. You know my character, so I hope you can stop here." A trace of disappointment flashed in Ouyang Lulu's eyes. She felt a bit uncomfortable inside, but she still said with all seriousness, "I'm not joking. Even if I don't introduce you to others today, you'll still be my man in the future. You said you won't have a girlfriend now, so I'll wait. You said you'll marry a wife and have children in the future, so I'll also wait. I, Ouyang Lulu, can afford to wait, even if our hair turns white." Tan Xiao didn't know what to say to this dogskin plaster. Ouyang Lulu once again pulled Tan Xiao's arm and said, "What you and me? Don't tell me you don't have to take responsibility for stealing my heart. I don't care. In short, you'll be my woman in the future. My property is also your property. If you want it now, I'll give it to you now. If you want it in the future, I'll give it to you." Suddenly, her eyes turned as she whispered with a smile, "That's right. This is my property. If you think it's not enough, the Ouyang family will give you a lot of dowry in the future. I'll help you ask for more when the time comes. In any case, the Ouyang family is rich." Tan Xiao was at a loss whether he had to laugh or cry as he looked at her. Suddenly, a wise saying left by the ancestor emerged in his mind, "A married daughter is like spilled water." This was really a case of girls turning to outsiders. If I have a daughter in the future, I'll just strangle her to death. Such a ridiculous idea popped up inside Tan Xiao's mind. "Boss, several city leaders have come." A well-dressed middle-aged woman came to Ouyang Lulu's front and said, "Tan Xiao, are you really not going with me to welcome the guests?" asked Ouyang Lulu. Tan Xiao shook his head and firmly said, "I'm not going." Ouyang Lulu loosened his arm and helplessly said, "Since you don't want to go, I won't force you. Manager Huang, keep an eye on him and don't let him slip away. Bring him here when the ribbon is cut." Remember, he's the biggest boss of this Paradise Manor. His order is more effective than mine. Boss, are you mistaken? Asked Manager Huang with disbelief. I'm not mistaken. I know what I'm talking about, said Ouyang Lulu decisively. He will soon be my boyfriend, and in the future, he will also be my husband. After that, he will also be the father of my child. Manager Huang looked at Tan Xiu with a strange expression before shifting to Ouyang Lulu. His mouth twitched a few times before he nodded and said, I understand. Chapter 475. Tan Xiu had a strong self-control, but facing Manager Huang's strange eyes, he still felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. He almost couldn't help but get up and leave. Manager Huang, right? You don't need to care about me. Go and do your thing. When it's time to cut the ribbon, just come and call me. Also, Ouyang Lulu is a bit feverish today. Her brain might be a bit confused, so don't take her joke seriously. Interesting. Manager Huang almost laughed when she heard Tan Xiu's words. She had been following Ouyang Lulu for several years and could be considered as Ouyang Lulu's right-hand man, which was why she was appointed as the general manager of Shanghai's Paradise Manor. She knew Ouyang Lulu's character like the back of her hand. She had never imagined that the dignified Ouyang clan's eldest daughter, a proud daughter of heaven who had pride flowing in her bones, would actually be so thick-skinned to pursue a boy. Most importantly, this boy seemed to be a few years younger than her, and he even used all sorts of excuses and was unwilling to do so. The iron tree blossoms, the sow climbs the tree. Manager Huang looked down on Tan Xiu, but she found Ouyang Lulu's behavior particularly interesting. However, she didn't want to waste time with Tan Xiu during this critical period. She slightly nodded with a fake smile and turned around to leave. Tang Xiu's eyes retracted from Manager Huang's back as he left. He felt quite bored and didn't feel like playing with his mobile anymore. He grabbed a fashion magazine on the table next to him, laid down on the sofa, and directly covered his face with the magazine, preparing to take a nap. Time flew by. While he was in a daze, two arguing voices entered his ears. Brother Jiang, the process of growing up is like breaking out of a cocoon and becoming a butterfly. Struggling to shed all the immaturity and ugliness, shaking light and beautiful wings under the sun, sparkling and slightly trembling in happiness. For example, Ouyang Lulu has shed her immaturity and matured day by day. Now, she has come to Shanghai to work hard. Today's big scene was all caused by her alone. Brother Chen, although what you said is somewhat reasonable, I have some other opinions. Growing up is constantly facing some sad things until you know what it means to experience the vicissitudes of life. Brother Jiang, your words do sound like my master's, Jiang Chen said with a smile. Your master? Brother Chen, you actually have a master? Your teacher is? No. Tan Xiu sat up from the sofa and removed the fashion magazine covering his face. Then, he lightly said, I'm his master. On the sofa opposite the coffee table, the two of them looked at Tan Xiu at the same time. Master, you're here too. When Chen Zhizhong first came over, he found someone sleeping on the opposite sofa. Although he felt that this situation was a little strange, he did not recognize Tan Xiu's identity. Tan Xiu nodded and said, Ouyang Lulu sent the wedding invitation to me, so I came to support her. As for you, why did you come to Shanghai? Chen Zhizhong respectfully said, I came to Shanghai to sign a contract and happened to hear from Ouyang Lulu's big brother, Ouyang Lei. She opened a restaurant in Shanghai, so I came to congratulate her. Master, I know you're studying at Shanghai University. I didn't want to disturb you, so I didn't plan to look for you. I didn't expect to see you here. Tan Xiu nodded and looked at the other person. Jiang Feng was dumbfounded. The relationship between Tan Xiu and Chen Zhizhong made him confused. After all, Chen Zhizhong's age was more than half of Tan Xiu's, yet he turned out to be Tan Xiu's disciple. It was really hard for him to accept it. With a calm expression, Chen Zhizhong said, Brother Jiang, we're both martial artists. I think you should understand the truth of the master. My master is very powerful, much more powerful than me. I think even you. Jiang Feng forced a smile and interrupted Chen Zhizhong's words, saying, Brother Chen, I know Mr. Tang is very powerful. I've suffered under him before. What's going on? Chen Zhizhong slightly stared blankly and turned to look at Tan Xiu with a strange expression. Tan Xiu lightly said, his victorious dragon martial school's people attracted a calamity and he was implicated. Chen Zhizhong was very astute and instantly understood the meaning of Tan Xiu's words. He then said with a smile, if that's the case, then I don't need to explain anymore. Master, Brother Jiang is actually a straightforward and upright person. He's a good martial arts master. However, his victorious dragon martial school has a large number of people, so it's inevitable that some black sheep will appear. Tan Xiu nodded and lightly said, you must act according to your ability. Nothing can be accomplished without rules and regulations. Only strict dogma can cultivate real talents. Jiang Feng gratefully looked at Chen Zhizhong and nodded to Tan Xiu, saying, I'll keep your teachings in mind, Mr. Tang. The number of people in my victorious dragon martial school is now only 1/5 of what it used to be. Furthermore, I've reformulated the rules and anyone who dares to violate them will be severely punished. A smile finally appeared on Tan Xiu's face as he said, a fall into the pit, a gain in your wit. I'm sure you've tasted the bitter fruit of being implicated, so there won't be any problems in the future. Alright, you two have a chat. I'm going out for a stroll. Tan Xiu got up and walked a few steps. Suddenly, he stopped and turned to look at Chen Zhizhong, asking, when are you going back to Star City? I originally planned to go back today, but it's too late after the opening ceremony of the Paradise Manor, so I'm going back tomorrow. What's your order, Master? Come with me after the opening ceremony. Tan Xiu said. We'll go back to Star City the day after tomorrow. All right. A touch of joy appeared in Chen Zhizhong's eyes as he replied respectfully. He had been looking for Tan Xiu recently because the true qi inside his body had been completely transformed into true essence, yet his cultivation speed was too slow. His strength had not improved much until now. According to his understanding of his little junior sister Guyin, Guyin should have surpassed him in terms of cultivation. Therefore, he needed Tan Xiu's guidance and help. As Tan Xiu left, Jiang Feng praised, Mr. Tang's strength is indeed very strong. I've broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm, yet I'm still not his match. I even have a feeling that even if I make another breakthrough and double my strength, I'm afraid I'm still not his match. A proud look appeared on Chen Zhizhong's face as he said with a slightly proud expression, he's naturally very strong since he can be my master. Brother Chen, Mr. Tang may be very strong, but I still don't get it. With his age, how can you? Jiang Feng curiously asked. Chen Zhizhong lightly smiled and said, my master just said that the one who achieves is the master. I want to reach a higher realm in martial arts, so it's normal for me to worship him as my master. I forgot to tell you that my cultivation is no longer the same as before because of my master. How about we have a match if there's a chance? Jiang Feng couldn't help laughing and said, Brother Chen, let's forget about it. Mr. Tang's strength is very strong, I'm sure of it. But half a year ago, you were far away from the martial arts grandmaster realm. Even if you have his guidance and your cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds, I don't think you can reach the martial arts grandmaster realm, right? A smile was revealed on the corner of Chen Zhizhong's mouth. Martial arts grandmaster. With his current strength, even if 8 martial arts grandmasters joined hands, they would not be his match. Looking at Jiang Feng's slightly contemptuous expression, he lightly smiled and said, when we return to Star City, I'll personally go to the victorious dragon martial school to compare notes with you. I hope you won't deliberately lose when the time comes. Jiang Feng laughed and said, no problem. Then I'll be waiting for you. On the tree-lined path outside, Tan Xiu had his hands in his pockets as he enjoyed the beautiful scenery inside the manor. To his surprise, there were a lot of rare birds and beasts in the lush and verdant woods on both sides. All of these animals were locked in iron cages, with 2 snow-white tigers being particularly eye-catching. Ouyang Lulu has spent a lot of effort to tinker with this manor. However, many of these rare birds and beasts are protected by the state. Does she have the right to keep them in captivity? Tan Xiu thought for a moment and suddenly revealed a helpless smile on his face. He felt that he was really bored to actually care about such trivial matters. Suddenly, his complexion suddenly changed as a thought emerged in his mind. As the thought sprouted in his mind, he immediately clenched his fists and an intense light burst out from his eyes. Keeping them in captivity. That's right. Back when he was in the immortal world, he had kept a lot of immortal beasts in captivity. Many of them were kept in captivity since they were young. He had personally refined the beast god pill to feed them. After they had opened their spiritual wisdom, he had injected the cultivation technique suitable for immortal beasts into their sea of consciousness. At that time, he had cultivated a lot of powerful immortal beasts. That's right. I need the bones of fierce beasts for my cultivation, but hunting them is too troublesome. I might as well keep some wild beasts in captivity and feed them with the beast god pill. Then, they will transform. If they can open their spiritual wisdom within my expectation, I can train them to be able to sit up and help them in battle. But if they can't open their spiritual wisdom within the expected time, I can kill them and use them for my cultivation. Also, I have tens of millions of medicinal fields in the immortal world with countless rare herbs. If I can also grow them on a large scale, not only can I use them for my cultivation in the future, but also the people I train can use them. Earth is too small. Once I and the people I train have a higher cultivation level, I'm afraid it won't be enough even if I collect all the resources on the entire Earth. It seems I have to prepare in advance. Money. I'm afraid it will be lacking. After all, a lot of land is going to be an extremely huge amount. 9 Dragons Island will be able to grow herbs and raise wild beasts in captivity, but I must also establish bases in other places. I need to carefully select the most suitable place for captivity and planting. The investment of funds and the management of personnel must also be solved. Thoughts kept churning in Tan Xiu's mind. When he sorted out his thoughts and memorized all these ideas, he clenched his fists and released a firm look in his eyes. Chapter 476. Time fleeted by, and in the blink of an eye, it was already noon. This time was also the auspicious time that Ouyang Lulu had chosen. Therefore, after receiving the call, Tan Xiu took the sightseeing car and hurried to the gate. Of the hundreds of guests who came to congratulate and witness the establishment of Paradise Manor, most of them had already arrived. Each of them had a smile on their faces. They were either chatting in groups of 3 or 4, or chatting with Ouyang Lulu and the few senior managers of Paradise Manor and sending their blessings. Among them were several young talents from Shanghai's business circle, flattering the big star Zhang Xinya, hoping to get close to her. The auspicious time has arrived. Please welcome our Paradise Manor's boss, Ouyang Lulu, city leader, Mr. Wang Tao, Shanghai Chamber of Commerce's vice president, Mr. Zhang Yueming, the world-famous singer, Ms. Zhang Xinya, and Mr. Tang Xiu to cut the ribbon for the establishment of Paradise Manor, said Manager Huang with a smile while holding a microphone. At this moment, there were 6 etiquette ladies in front of the gate, quietly waiting with red ribbons in their hands. Tan Xiu. Aside from Ouyang Lulu and Zhang Xinya, the city leader, Wang Tao, and the vice president of Shanghai's Chamber of Commerce, Zhang Yueming, were surprised. Zhang Yueming knew Tan Xiu and also knew Tan Xiu's identity. He was just curious why Tan Xiu would appear on such an occasion. But Wang Tao was puzzled because he had never heard of Tan Xiu. Boss Ouyang, who is this Tan Xiu? Wang Tao stood beside Ouyang Lulu and asked with a lowered voice. Ouyang Lulu chuckled and said, he's my idol, and also the object of my pursuit. Of course, he has many other identities, so I won't tell you one by one. I believe that if Tan Xiu wants to develop in Shanghai, Mayor Wang will know him. Wang Tao was secretly speechless. He admired Ouyang Lulu's straightforwardness, but he couldn't help but ridicule inwardly. Such an important opening ceremony, yet she actually invited an unknown figure to cut the ribbon. If this news were to spread out, wouldn't it be a joke? However, Ouyang Lulu was the boss of Paradise Manor. Wang Tao was too lazy to care about her decision. The reason why he could come to cut the ribbon this time was entirely because of the Ouyang family of Jingmen Island. After all, his family and the Ouyang family had a deep relationship. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Tan Xiu came to the back of the red ribbon. He originally planned to stand at the very edge, but after cutting the ribbon, he would directly hide to the side. But he didn't expect that Zhang Xinya would smile and pull him to switch places with him, giving him the position next to Ouyang Lulu. Hua, the hundreds of guests in front of them all revealed surprised expressions, and even began to whisper to each other in private. What's going on? Zhang Xinya was a big star, the most famous public figure. Where did that Tan Xiu come from? When he was introduced, it was just his name. What right does he have to stand inside and let Zhang Xinya stand outside? Does Zhang Xinya know that Tan Xiu? Where did he come from? He actually made superstar Zhang give up her spot inside to him. The position of the ribbon-cutting ceremony is also very particular. There's no doubt that Ouyang Lulu is standing in the middle. She's, after all, the Paradise Manor's boss, and it's natural for Mayor Wang to stand beside her. After all, it represents the government's recognition and support. But an unknown nobody actually stands on the other side of Boss Ouyang. Isn't this a bit unreasonable? Yeah. Zhang Yueming is the vice president of Shanghai's Chamber of Commerce. Not only is he a billionaire, but his position is also very prominent. He's standing at the very edge, so what qualifications does that surname Tang have to stand inside? What the hell is Zhang Xinya doing? Along with the discussion of the crowd, Manager Huang shot a deep look at Zhang Xinya and Tan Xiu, and then handed the microphone to Ouyang Lulu, who was smiling. Today, I'm very honored to invite all of you to attend the opening ceremony of our Paradise Manor, said Ouyang Lulu with a smile. Thank you, everyone. Please take care of my Paradise Manor in the future and support us. I'm a straightforward person and don't want to talk nonsense. Therefore, I hereby announce the establishment of the Paradise Manor. Bam, bam, the deafening sound of firecrackers billowed not far away. Cut the ribbon. Manager Huang said aloud. The 5 VIPs responsible for cutting the ribbon used scissors to cut the red ribbon, while the bands on both sides began to beat the gongs and drums, playing the music of blessings. Applause sounded from the hundreds of guests, and the whole scene was full of jubilation. Ouyang Lulu took the microphone again, looked at everyone and said with a smile, the ribbon-cutting ceremony is over. Our Paradise Manor has prepared delicious food and the best wine in the world. God's nectar. Starting from today, our Paradise Manor will set up a lucky draw. Any guest who participates in the lucky draw may get a bottle of God's nectar. Of course, there are only 5 spots every day, and each person can get 2 bottles of God's nectar. The price will also be slightly higher than other places' God's nectar. In an instant, the hundreds of guests present all revealed shocked expressions. Many of them even asked loudly, "What's going on? Boss Ouyang, is what you said true? You actually provide God's nectar here? Don't tell me you have a cooperation with the Magnificent Tang Corporation?" Yeah. The God's nectar produced by the Magnificent Tang Corporation is now a well-known top-notch wine, and every drinker takes it as an honor to drink it. But the sales model of the Magnificent Tang Corporation, as well as the quantity of God's nectar they sell, is too little. You can't buy it unless you buy it in their exclusive stores. Boss Ouyang, if I double the price of each bottle, can your Paradise Manor help me buy a batch of God's nectar? If you agree, I'll immediately transfer the money to your account. I'm willing to buy it at 5 times the price. 10 times. Ouyang Lulu was dumbfounded as she looked at the people in front of her. She never thought that using God's nectar as a gimmick would lead to such a situation. It must be noted that she had personally gone to Star City several times to pester Kangxia. She even had a small agreement in private, yet she could only get 5,000 bottles of God's nectar every year. Finally, she quickly glanced at Tan Xiu and found that Tan Xiu was at a loss whether to cry or laugh. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. Everyone, please calm down. As a matter of fact, I also want to earn this money. But the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation is too stingy. I've been pestering him, and even offered to marry him, only then did he agree to give me a little share every year. But for my Paradise Manor, I've taken it all out. If you want to buy it, then go directly to the magnificent Tang Corporation. At the side, Tan Xiu rolled his eyes inwardly and secretly cursed, this girl is simply lying through her teeth. Is it really fun to slander yourself? He would never stand up at this time even if he was beaten to death. Although he was somewhat famous now, in today's environment, these guests obviously had a good status and didn't recognize him at all. They didn't even know that he was the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. He wouldn't be stupid enough to stand up and be surrounded by everyone to curry favor with him. Fortunately, Ouyang Lulu didn't want to let the God's nectar seize the limelight of today's grand opening, so she said with a smile, everyone, the sightseeing cars are ready at the gate. Please come in. I'll definitely let everyone eat and drink well today and have a good time. As everyone entered, under the guidance of the welcoming ladies, they entered the tower-shaped restaurant in the middle. Fragrant dishes were served on the table, and each table was provided with 2 bottles of God's nectar. As the protagonist of today's event, Ouyang Lulu was always accompanied by high-ranking officials and nobles. Since Tan Xiu didn't like such a noisy scene, he quietly retreated and found a quiet rest area. He asked the staff here for some paper money and silently recorded the names of the medicinal herbs he was going to plant and the list of the wild beasts he was going to rear in captivity. A fragrant breeze blew past. A woman in a white dress and white casual shoes came to Tan Xiu. Grand Master. Tan Xiu looked up. When he saw Gu Xiaoxue, he looked slightly dazed and immediately asked in surprise, why are you here, Xiaoxue? Lulu invited me. We're good sisters. Besides, Grand Master is also in Shanghai, so I came. Gu Xiaoxue chuckled. It's just that I don't like crowds, so I didn't appear in front of everyone. I just learned from Manager Huang that Grand Master wasn't in the banquet hall, so I asked around and came here. Tan Xiu pointed to the opposite side and said with a smile, let's sit down and talk. Actually, I was just about to contact you and ask you to come here. Take a look at these. I just thought of them. Gu Xiaoxue took it and carefully read it. Then, she said with a puzzled expression, Grand Master, these 2 lists. One of them records the names of medicinal herbs, while the other one records the birds and beasts. What are you going to do? I'm going to plant medicinal herbs on a large scale and rear wild beasts. I'm going to use the immortal law to transform these wild beasts into fierce beasts or spirit beasts, said Tan Xiu with all seriousness. Your idea is somewhat similar to Master's. Gu Xiaoxue was surprised. It's just that when Master proposed this idea, his physical condition got worse and worse, and he eventually gave up on it. Grand Master, if the planting and rearing are successful, then we can get a lot of cultivation resources. That's right, said Tan Xiu. If we want to cultivate a large number of powerhouses, cultivation resources are indispensable. Therefore, my initial idea is to plant 200 acres of medicinal herbs. I'll personally arrange an array to make the medicinal herbs grow quickly. With my current ability, I can make the medicinal herbs grow for a year, which is equivalent to 10 years outside the array, or even more. If we have 8 to 10 years, we can get a lot of medicinal herbs with 100-year-old efficacy. As for the wild beasts in captivity, we also need to arrange an array, but their growth speed will be a lot slower. But after 8 to 10 years, we can distinguish which wild beasts can grow into spirit beasts, and which ones can't open their spiritual wisdom and can only become low-level fierce beasts. Today's second chapter, there's still the third chapter tonight. Are you surprised? Can I have 2 tickets? __. Chapter 477. Tan Xiu slowly explained his idea, causing Gu Xiaoxue's eyes to sparkle with splendor. She even fantasized about the scene of harvesting the results in the future. Finally, after Tan Xiu finished speaking, he took the 2 pieces of paper and asked, "Some time ago, I gave a sum of money to Kang Xia due to the magnificent Tang Corporation's development. I only have 1.2 billion yuan left now. But if I want to complete my idea, I'm afraid this amount won't be enough even if it's multiplied by 10. So, how much money can the everlasting feast hall provide?" Gu Xiaoxue thought for a moment and said, 28 billion yuan is all the funds I have in my card. Also, if I can transfer some funds from other businesses, I should be able to transfer another 10 to 20 billion yuan. Tan Xiu thought for a while and said, "You don't need to transfer funds from other businesses. Just transfer 9 billion yuan to my account after you return to Jingmen Island. An initial investment of 10 billion yuan should be more or less enough. I'll look for you again if the scale is expanded later. You don't need to wait for me to return to Jingmen Island, Grand Master. I can transfer the money to you now." Gu Xiaoxue smiled. A few minutes later, Gu Xiaoxue put away her mobile, looked up and smilingly said, "I've transferred the money to you, Grand Master. But the bank manager just called me and confirmed that the money will be transferred within 3 working days." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "It's best to buy land in the mountains with rich spiritual qi. Besides, the land in the mountains is cheap, but it's quite difficult to develop it. But we can do it if we throw the money. It's just that I haven't determined the specific location yet. Do you have any good places to recommend?" Gu Xiaoxue shook her head and said, "According to your idea, we need to pay attention to the weather, temperature, topography, water conservancy, and other conditions to build a place to plant medicinal herbs and raise wild beasts. I rarely go out and have only been to a few famous mountains and rivers, so I don't have any good places to recommend. However, I do have an idea." "What is it?" asked Tan Xiu. "I think it's better to buy some islands instead of buying land in the country," said Gu Xiaoxue. "First of all, those islands can be rented and the price is very cheap. Many islands have rich spiritual qi, so it's very suitable for planting medicinal herbs and raising wild beasts. Of course, the most important thing was to look after them. If we were in the country, we would need a large number of people to carry out security work. However, it's different on an island. We only need to send a group of experts to be stationed there and use high-tech surveillance equipment to form an absolutely safe zone." Tan Xiu's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and said, "You're right. I didn't think of this just now. Jingmen Island is located in the South China Sea. I think it would be best to plant medicinal herbs and raise wild beasts on an island in the South China Sea. How about this? I'll take some time to go to the South Sea and conduct a field trip. Once it's confirmed, we'll immediately discuss the lease and start the construction. I'll finalize the list of security members in advance, Grand Master," replied Gu Xiaoxue with a chuckle. "How many people do you think we need?" Tan Xiu shook his head and said, "It's too early to talk about this now, but it's still necessary to prepare in advance. How about this? Pick 50 core members first. Don't tell them what they're going to do. Once everything has been arranged properly, I will personally test the 50 core members. Once they receive my approval, they will bring a group of outer members to the island and be stationed there." Gu Xiaoxue gently nodded. After talking about the proper business, Tan Xiu looked at Gu Xiaoxue's bright eyes and didn't know what to say for a while. Although he and Gu Xiaoxue had been in contact for a long time, Gu Xiaoxue's temperament was relatively cold. The two rarely had a common topic apart from serious matters. After being silent for 2 minutes, Tan Xiu then said, Xiaoxue, go eat something first if you have nothing else to do. Take good care of Yan, or after you return to Jingmen Island. I will, said Gu Xiaoxue with a nod. Tan Xiu suddenly recalled something and quickly said, wait a minute, when are you going back to Jingmen Island? I've already seen you, Grand Master. The Paradise Manor has opened for business, so I'm going back to Jingmen Island in the afternoon, said Gu Xiaoxue. Since you're here, take 5 children to Jingmen Island on the way back, said Tan Xiu. They are also orphans I adopted and are now living in the Blue Star Villa complex where I live. Remember to put them together with the previous children. These 5 little guys have some foundation in martial arts, so I've also taught them a set of body forging technique. Increase your strength a bit when training them. I'll go with you when you go back, Grand Master, said Gu Xiaoxue with a chuckle. Then I'll take them away. All right, I'll call you when I leave, said Tan Xiu. That's right, there's a man called Chen Zhizhong in the banquet hall. He's my in-name disciple. Take some time to see him. Gu Xiaoxue's eyes lit up. She nodded and said, I'll go there later. Following Gu Xiaoxue's departure, Tan Xiu put away the 2 lists full of words and comfortably nestled on the sofa. He didn't want to think about anything else and was ready to lie down and cultivate for a while. Although the star force in his meridians could circulate on its own without his control, he was suspicious that the star force's circulation speed was obviously much faster, and the absorption speed of the sun's power was also a lot faster. It didn't take long for footsteps to be heard. Tang Xiu didn't pay any attention to him and just laid down comfortably. Mom, it doesn't seem to be so cold here. A childish voice sounded in Tan Xiu's ears. It was a woman in her 30s with shoulder-length hair and bright earrings. She had a pretty face and was carrying a small school bag. Her name was Gu Hui, and she followed her husband to attend the opening ceremony of the Paradise Manor today. However, half an hour ago, the child was a bit uncomfortable and showed symptoms of a cold. Therefore, she didn't have the mood to eat. She took her son out and waited for her husband to finish his business and then prepared to go to the hospital. Dong dong, don't make trouble. This uncle is asleep. Don't disturb him. The 4 or 5-year-old boy looked at Tan Xiu and silently nodded. However, his small body moved closer to Tan Xiu, and a comfortable expression appeared on his slightly pale face. Tan Xiu finally opened his eyes. After glancing at the mother and son in front of him, his eyes finally fell on the little boy. What made him frown was that he could feel a deathly aura from the little boy. Little guy, can uncle give you a hug? The little boy looked up at his mother. Gu Hui quickly said, Sir, my son has caught a cold. I'm worried that I'll infect you, so. Tan Xiu shook his head with a smile. He picked up the little boy and put his fingers on his pulse. After feeling it for more than 20 seconds, Tan Xiu slightly furrowed his brows and looked up at Gu Hui, asking, Has there been a murder case in your family recently? Gu Hui was confused and asked, A murder case? No. Sir, you. Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt her and said, If there hasn't been a murder case in your family, then the person closest to your son must have personally experienced it. And it must have happened no more than 2 days ago. Gu Hui frowned and grabbed her son. She took 2 steps back and said with a vigilant face, Sir, I don't understand what you mean. There has never been a murder case in my family. My husband and I are the closest people to my son, and we have never personally experienced a murder case. I hope you don't talk nonsense. Having said that, she was about to leave with her son in her arms. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes and looked at her back, saying, If I tell you that your son doesn't have a cold, but is stained with death qi, and this situation can't be cured even if you go to the hospital, I don't know if you will still leave. Of course, if you doubt and leave, your son is still too young. The death qi will erode his vitality and eventually kill him within 7 days. Gu Hui was an atheist. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, she immediately turned around and angrily glared at Tan Xiu, saying, Don't blame me for calling someone to take you away if you talk nonsense again. Having said that, she immediately left with the boy in her arms. Tan Xiu shook his head. The heavenly Tao's karma had a deep impact on ordinary people. Even the current him was constantly under the influence of the heavenly Tao. Only if he could break the shackles above his head and ascend to become an immortal could he get rid of the heavenly Tao's interference. Riches and honor are determined by heaven. Even though he had encountered such a thing, if the child's mother did not believe him and did not allow him to investigate clearly, he would be willing to dispel the death aura on the child's body. After a few days of being corroded by the death aura, the child would die, which was also his fate. In the tower-shaped restaurant, hundreds of guests filled the banquet hall on the second floor. In front of the luxurious table, everyone was full of praises as they tasted the delicacies and sipped the god's nectar. At the innermost table in the middle, Ouyang Lulu was accompanying the city leader Wang Tao, Zhang Yueming, Zhang Xinya, and 8 or 9 other high-ranking guests as they chatted and ate. At this moment, Gu Xiaoshua's white dress fluttered as though she was a fairy descending to the mortal world. She leisurely walked into the banquet hall, attracting the attention of countless people as she came to Ouyang Lulu's side. "Sister Shui, sit here with me." Ouyang Lulu didn't expect that Gu Xiaoxue, who didn't want to come for dinner before, would come. She immediately looked pleasantly surprised. "I'm here to see Martial Uncle, Lulu." Gu Xiaoxue shook her head. After saying that, she asked for an empty wine glass from Ouyang Lulu and then came to Chen Zhizhong's side. She then chuckled and said, "Martial Uncle, Xiaoxue didn't know that you also came here. I hope you can forgive me for not coming to greet you before. Martial nephew salutes you with this glass of wine." Chen Zhizhong stood up, but Gu Xiaoxue quickly persuaded him to sit down again. He took the glass of wine that she had just poured for him and said with a smile, "Have you seen Master?" "Grand Master is resting in the rest area," said Gu Xiaoxue. "He told me that you're here." "Master? Grand Master?" Everyone else at the table wore strange expressions as they looked at Chen Zhizhong and Gu Xiaoxue with incredulous expressions. They couldn't figure out what this title meant. Chen Zhizhong's master, what kind of sacred being was that? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.